Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Hollywood Happy Hour podcast. This is Stephen Anthony Bailey, and I took a long hiatus. I don't even remember the last time I released an episode, and I'll tell you why. It's because I got married. Shannon, we got married, didn't we? Yeah, we got married. I don't know if you could hear her in the background, but she said we sure did. I got married, and I am already just fat and lazy. I'm doing the husband thing. Yep, that's what I'm doing. No, but I am very excited to release a new episode. I'm going to have Shannon on again, and we can chat about details and also go more in depth with talking about stuff with her. But for now, we're going to be talking to her sister, Taylor Bouknight. And I had a conversation with her. It was super interesting. She is a nutritionist. She is the face of Tumeric Latte mix. She is half of the Drunk Poet Society podcast, and she is my next guest. And it is a long episode, but that's just because it's super interesting. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm going to keep this intro as short as humanly possible and tell you more about me later on down the road. But for now, enjoy. I can't remember what episode this is. Enjoy this episode, the newest episode of the Hollywood Happy Hour podcast with my guest, Taylor Bouknight.
I mean, as long as you think my sound is good.
All right. So, yeah, hey, here we are. Good. All right. So, tell me about this Tumeric Latte thing. What is it? What is Tumeric Latte?
You're just jumping in?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Turmeric Latte mix. Do you want the short version?
Yeah. Well, I want the
All right.
the big old version.
Okay. Well, it started in Australia, and we started where I was just working in the kitchen of a health food cafe called Nature's Harvest, and someone suggested we put turmeric lattes on the menu, and my bosses at the time were they are Indian, so they grew up drinking turmeric, and they're like, no one's gonna drink a turmeric latte, but we decided to try and formulate something that was really good tasting. So the main ingredient's turmeric, and then it's rounded off with 6 other spices, kind of similar to chai. So your cinnamon, cardamom, vanilla, chili, black pepper, and ginger.
That's a lot. So wait, so it's a latte mix, right?
Yes.
And so what percentage of it is actually turmeric? Because turmeric's a root.
53%.
Oh wow, okay. And the root itself is orange, and so when you make the mix, this is such a weird question to ask, but when you have the mix together like that, is there artificial food coloring, or is it all just from the actual root?
No, it's all turmeric. Yeah.
Holy cow.
It's 100% natural. Non-GMO product. There's no additives, fillers, sugars, things like that.
Great. So you got involved with it, and you are you're not only the face of the company, you are your job is to really market it and to sell it, essentially, to get it in the stores and things like that, right?
Yeah, I helped in the creation of the actual product. So I mean, for the longest time, myself and then my 2 bosses when I was working at their cafe, Hammond and Sonnell, we were the only 3 who knew the actual recipe. And so when we started actually distributing the products to customers, it was only because, as well, our customers started asking for it. We weren't like, oh yeah, let's make this a big company. We were a health food cafe. And so we only started distributing as well because we met this kid, at the time he was a kid, who was suicidal at the age of 13.
Oh,
and very depressed. And then he went to a youth camp called Magic Moments Youth Leadership Foundation, and he went from a 0 to just couldn't stop smiling. And we had to find out more about this camp, and so we did. And basically it teaches young people, so anyone under the age of 18, to figure out what their passions are or figure out what they're good at. It's not only like an uplifting, awesome camp for people who may be struggling with mental illness, but also it inspires them to start like businesses. Right. So really rad things come from here. Like there's these 2 girls from Bali that we sponsored to go to the camp, and they were at 14 and 16 at the time, I think, or maybe 13 and 15, and they convinced the leader of Bali to ban all plastic bags because plastic and trash is a major issue in Indonesia, and they have a TED Talk, and they're just incredible girls. But that all stemmed from them going to this camp, and so that's what we do is we started distributing so we could raise money to sponsor kids to go to this camp, and our goal is to sponsor 10,000 kids by 2020.
Wow, that's a ton. So wait, okay, so you've got this camp, and then of course there's the latte mix. And it's picking up steam. It is becoming something that is being not just requested by customers, but companies. And I won't talk about that because I shouldn't. But what's the website for it?
TumericLatteMix.com.
There it is. I know that it's like sort of like confirmation bias, but as soon as you showed this to me a long time ago, I didn't know what turmeric was. But after you said it, like, I hear that word everywhere now. Like, right now, it's like this hot time for this thing. And it's interesting because and it's probably because of the internet, and it's probably because people travel more like you did, but nutrition seems to be changing constantly. And, like, of course, there are, like, tons of different fad diets that come and go, right? But, like, it's interesting that something like turmeric is kind of having its moment right now.
Yeah. Well, turmeric, I mean, it's based in, it started in Ayurveda in India. I mean, growing up, people drink it all the time for combating like colds and flus, immune system support, things like that. There's a lot of studies being done that dementia and Alzheimer's is in very, very low rates, if not like non-existent in Indian culture. And so there's been a lot of studies going into turmeric right now. Everything, like matcha, like whatever it is, they have their waves, in the health scene, especially in the U.S., but it's mainly where the money goes to research things is when things come into, the health food scene. So, I mean, people have known about turmeric and a lot of herbs for so long, and right now, this is just where the money's going is like, the other thing, too, is like people will know what curcumin is, but not turmeric or vice versa.
What's curcumin?
And curcumin, curcumin is the active constituent in turmeric that's being researched for its anti-inflammatory properties. So people will buy curcumin tablets, but more research now is being done that curcumin's super hard to absorb by itself. In the whole food form, and there are things in there that help you absorb the nutrients. That's why eating a carrot is better than, taking like carotenoids by themselves, or like that's why, eating things, or I always try to say, think of supplements as supplements, if you're iron deficient, sure, go take some iron supplements, but then make a list of food that have a good source of iron in it and start eating more of those so that way you don't have to supplement forever.
Well, I think the interesting thing is, and I'll go back to like the beginning of your journey to talk about that in a second, but we mentioned like the fad diet thing. I've had friends who like they just cold turkey went vegan or vegetarian and didn't do an appropriate amount of research. Also keto, and also whether it's like the caveman diet, what was that called? Paleo, or even like back in the day when it was like Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers or what's the one with the A?
I don't know, Atkins.
Atkins, that's it. Yeah. So all these different diets, people like just jump on them and start experimenting with them, and they're not doing the research, and then they end up having to go spend time and money at the doctor's office for someone to say, well, it's because you're doing this diet that you didn't do complete research on to make sure that you're filling all your nutrition requirements as a human being.
For sure.
I'm dumbfounded by that because, I think there's a certain level of, well, let me feel how this food makes me feel, or like how people bash like people with gluten allergies. It's like a big, especially like Midwest, South. They're like,
why are you gluten free?
Why are you gluten free? It's stupid. But those are also the people that probably haven't done any research into the
What
industrialization of wheat and not seeing how our food is Wonder Bread isn't natural. Like there's nothing.
Wonder Bread isn't food.
Yeah, it's not food. It's not it's complete just fluffy chemicals. It's nonsense. So like with something like Tumeric Latte, when it's something that is still sort of a curious word for people. Like I think if I was out on the street, how many people do you think 1 out of 10 would know what turmeric is?
I think
not in LA.
Yeah, I was going to say it really depends
LA.
on what community you're
Right.
in. So in Australia, at least, turmeric kind of had a revolution, like the Turmeric Revolution. And when we came out with our Turmeric Latte, there was a lot of people like, oh, what's that? Or why would I drink that? And then all of a sudden, every cafe started serving their own version of a Turmeric Latte. And I think with that, because it's funny, Australia is usually second to the U.S. in terms of what we get.
Right.
But this one just took over Australia, and I think it may have something to do with our proximity to India. There is a large Indian population.
Sure, yeah.
So something like that. But it really depends on what part of the U.S. you're in, whether you've heard of turmeric or not. Whether you're like, I find the coastal regions tend to be health conscious, then maybe that's something. Or where people are outdoorsy people, they tend to be more conscious of that kind of stuff.
Well, what's interesting is like people, humans that were in colonies and in these little tribes. Naturally, like rewinding to like the beginning of civilization, they would always find bodies of water and go there. And I'm not trying to insult people by saying this, but the people who do find that in our today's society, because natural selection isn't really existing anymore. We just keep building and building, and everyone's safe and warm and able to read books instead of worrying about hunting their food.
Yeah.
But I still find like maybe there's something natural in us where like the people who are super health conscious and are liberal and try to think about the future and try to seek a way to help preserve our planet sort of do, not that there aren't people in the middle and south, but they are sort of on those coastal areas. And I wonder if that's our new form of like a natural selection kind of thing where like the people thriving are still sort of by those bodies of water. That's just a weird theory I just came up with. It's not.
No, I mean it's very
that.
interesting. I guess also, what is your definition of thriving? Because I feel like
That's
what I
a
mean.
good
Like
point.
with the I put that in quotes, health conscious community. like going back to all the fad diets, and there's it's like. I find we're constantly trying to seek what the healthiest diet in the world is, and one thing that I really resonate. There's an author called Michael Pollan. He writes great books. Omnivore's Dilemma is a great one, and there was another one. But anyways, one of his books, he writes about what is the healthiest diet in the world, and one way that he looked at it, which was different from anything I've read, was through dentists and like the healthcare of teeth and stuff, because that tells a lot about our health as well. And basically the conclusion, spoiler alert if you want to read the book, but I still highly recommend it because it goes into the science of it, is there's no such thing as the healthiest diet in the world, because everyone requires something else, and that's based on our genetics and our ancestry, as well as where we're currently living and how we've grown up in terms of how our like digestion and metabolism works as an individual. But what it comes down to is the standard American diet is the worst diet in the world.
Yeah.
And another interesting conclusion, and some people might not like to hear this, especially if you're like me who likes to travel and try different cuisines, and with the ability to travel, I think we do have to kind of evolve as a species with our digestion as well.
Yeah.
But ancient cultures ate the same thing every day. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you eat the Mediterranean diet if you're the Mediterranean. You had an Asian diet if you were in any of the Asian countries, and that varied, from country to country. But we can go get Thai food today and Indian food tomorrow and Mexican food on Friday, and I don't think our digestion can necessarily keep up with that.
No, I would be in big trouble. I don't mean to interrupt. Can you give me a pen behind you?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, is it also, this is two side thoughts. One, people are going to be, I wanted to jump in this Tumeric Latte thing because this is going to be so confusing to anyone who's expecting an acting talk.
Yeah.
I thought this was a Hollywood show. Is it true that if I were to eat something every single day, let's say oranges. Vitamin C comes from oranges. If I eat oranges every single day, will my body eventually stop taking in as much vitamin C? Or will I continue to take in the vitamin C?
I don't know if I've ever read a study on that specific
Because
thing, so I'm not sure.
A smart person that does have that I know personally that has a PhD told me that as they were in school. And I thought about it and I said, that kind of makes sense. But then, I don't know.
I know your body can develop an immune response to something that you're eating constantly. I don't know if that's necessarily an allergy or something like that, but... and also, physiology is crazy, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because that'll take forever, but there's been even, like, studies done where if you have an emotional reaction while eating a certain food, you can then hinder your absorption of nutrients while eating that food.
Interesting.
And one story that I know specifically was a child, grew up eating veggies, whatever, and one day while eating broccoli, watched his dog die, and then had severe allergic reactions to broccoli ever since then. And this, they didn't realize this correlation when it happened, but then years later, when they had done allergy testing, they realized it was an increase in, like, cortisol levels while he ate the broccoli, and it was something subconscious that happened, and that stuck with him. So it was just, and that's the body's crazy.
What a great thing to, like. It's not just about what you eat, it's the lifestyle. Mm-hmm. It's not about eating healthy, it's about being healthy, mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating. I think all the time about, like, growing up in Indiana, no money, how much McDonald's has probably gone through me. Disgusting amounts, probably. Or, like crappy hot dogs, or how many frozen dinners, and I think about, like, because I keep trying to get better, and I am with my diet, I think, but I think about, like, well, what I'm doing now, it's leaps and bounds better than what I did when I was a kid. Soda, for instance, oh my God, how much soda did I put through my body? That was like...
Yeah.
3 cans of soda a day. If I have a can of soda today, I would feel psychologically, I'd feel bad because I'd think, like, all those calories, that was bad to put in my system. Yeah. But I would also physically feel bad.
Yeah.
I don't feel good when I drink it. I feel
the sugar and,
the sugar makes me more tired. Like, for instance, the feeling I get from espresso is not the feeling I get from Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. I do like the taste of Coca-Cola. If, like, I was having a cheat day, I would go to the movies and I would get a box of Sour Patch Kids, all sugar, just gooey sugar, and a sugary drink of Coca-Cola, and shove that in my face in 2 hours. There's no way any of that's good for me.
Yeah.
And I know I feel terrible when I do it, and I keep doing it. But I think it's because psychologically, maybe I go back as a child and enjoy it. So it's like the reverse effect of what you just said with the kid with the broccoli and the puppy.
Yeah, for sure.
I still shouldn't do it.
Well, you bring it, like, that's really interesting because part of me, I would be a student forever, honestly, if I could. I love studying and learning stuff. There's really cool courses coming out now specifically called the psychology of eating, or food psychology, because we're realizing more and more how the mental and physical body correlate. And I think for a while we just want to, and even still, some people just want to say, you can be physically healthy, you can be mentally healthy, they don't correspond at all. But like I said, physiology is crazy. How you feel actually dictates how hormones get produced in your body. And I think, that plays a lot into the psychology of eating. And
big time.
And that's a big holistic health thing. And I know that's kind of, some people view holistic whatever as like a hippy-dippy term. But I'm like, no, it just means the whole person.
Right. Well, yeah, there is sort of that. I'm excited for what time we live in because our world is starting to come together and be one, thanks to the internet and better transportation, right? And I'm a broken record when I say this, but, like, I'm so sick of everyone thinking we live in the future. We are so close to caveman times. We are closer to caveman times than we are to figured out civilization. We're like just this conversation about figuring out psychology and nutrition go together. Should have been figured out if we were in the future. This should have been figured out hundreds of years ago, and we're still doing these tests, and we're still figuring out, to figure out, oh, you might have a gluten allergy, and we're just figuring this out, or it's just becoming socially aware. We're becoming socially aware. It's remarkable to me that we're only here, but I'm excited because we seem to be having a lot more breakthroughs, and information is easier to get. Yeah. However, I think most people are misinformed, though. How do you, outside of going to school, which you did, how do you think, what's people's best foot forward as far as getting the correct information or good information on putting together a better diet or figuring out what diet is best for them? Because like you said, there is no best diet. It's the best diet for who you are as a person. How do you think somebody should do that? Because like there's like, you told me about that book a while ago called The Blood Type Diet. Mm-hmm. Do you still stand by that, and then B, the answer to how does someone figure it out?
I mean, definitely reading as much as you can, but that being said, it is really, it's a double-edged sword with the internet. You can Google anything, so you can come up with these fad diets, and they look great on paper. They give you 5 reasons why to do keto, and you're like, that sounds like me. Uh-huh. And so it's hard to navigate as someone who doesn't study like anatomy and physiology,
right?
Or even understand terminology. And so my biggest advice is talk to people who do study it. Talk to nutritionists, talk to doctors, talk to friends, or talk to someone, like, even if you haven't done like formal schooling, talk to people who actually read research articles from like peer-reviewed journals as opposed to Pinterest articles.
Yeah, oh my God, I wish you'd have put a period there. Talk to people who actually read, period.
Yeah, or talk to people who actually read. Or, and read with like a discerning eye. So, I mean, I will always read about the current fad diet, whether I agree with it, disagree with whatever, and I'll always try to go in with an open mind and see why has it become popularized, and then try and make an informed decision from there. To be honest, I'm going to say I'm not a fan of really any fad diets, and that's a whole different, that goes into more of the psychology thing. I think labels can be really detrimental to us. They can be beneficial. They can also,
hate the labels. Yeah. I hate it. I hate I just used it, but I used it because I wanted to explain what I was saying, but I don't believe in cheat days. Mm-hmm. I think cheat days is a psychological booby trap, because you could be... 2 reasons. I think most people will do a cheat day and then the next day feel so terrible that there's no way they're going back to what they were doing the 6 days previous. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that. So now you have 2 cheat days. It's not really a cheat day. Now it's 2 cheat days. And also, people are saying cheat day and going from ingesting 1,500 to 2,000, maybe they're even staying at 2,000 calories, and then doing 7,000 calories at once.
Yeah.
The cheat day is more damaging than just eating 3,000 calories every day.
Yeah. Yeah, especially psychologically.
Jack up your sugars and eat the garbage. Like, a whole day of just eating Sour Patch Kids would kill me. I don't think I would ever be able to bounce back as far as making progress, because that's, for me, I'm not even trying to I'm trying to make progress. I don't want to stay the same. I want to get better with age.
Yeah.
While I'm still in my
That's the smartest thing you can do. Yeah, the smartest thing is preventative medicine.
Exactly.
Staying well while you're well.
Yeah.
So.
How has it helped you, like the studying of nutrition? Like, can you talk about like where you started out and kind of where you're at?
Yeah, and I mean, I think my story is not only like common and relatable, but it kind of shows how the more informed you are, the more informed you are.
Yeah.
I started on my like health and wellness journey in high school because I was working in a wellness center. That was like one of my first main jobs, and then after.
What took you to the wellness center? Why did you want to work there? Did you already have an interest, or was it just a random thing? So
our senior year of high school, we had to do job shadowing, and so I was actually originally going to college for psychology, and I I did a job shadow under a psychologist who works with youth who are either homeless or have drug addictions. That was one of my job shadows. And then I job shadowed at the wellness center because I was also interested in holistic health. And so both were great. But then when I graduated high school, I actually got offered a job at the wellness center because I decided to take some time off before going to college. And so I worked there full time. And my mentors were great. The manager of the shop was a homeopath, and so I learned a lot about alternative medicines, or I like to call them complementary medicines. Again, it's with language is powerful, and
that's what the division between. That's what I think I cut myself off there, saying Western medicine or like East. I hate that. I hate the division. Just say.
I mean, I understand you don't want to call it all medicine because you do want to differentiate. Doctors go through a lot of schooling. They know a lot about anatomy and physiology, and you don't need someone who has a 2-year certificate in whatever, and not, talking bad about them, but someone who has a 2-year certificate in herbology comes out and says, I'm just as important, because you can't learn as much in those years that a doctor does.
No way.
But I think there's this middle ground where we should be working together, and both sides have kind of gone to the extremes where it's everything doctors do are bad, vaccines are bad, medicines are bad, and then you have doctors who are like, well, they're crazy because I know this and that, and I'm like,
I mean, how many do you think there are American doctors that would prescribe something that would be on the homeopathic side, or vice versa? Would a homeopathic, what do I call them? Healer? I don't know. What would you call them?
Homeopaths.
Just call them homeopath.
Well, that's when I just call them natural therapists.
There you go.
Yeah.
So a natural therapist, would they ever? I don't see them ever prescribing a drug that's in big pharma. I don't see it happening.
No, it just depends though. So I also, when I was in jumping forward a bit, so then I've had a lot of really cool internships which have kind of gotten me to this point. I interned with someone at Cancer Support WA, and her first round of college, she did naturopathy and nutrition, and then she graduated. I'm not sure what her bachelor's was in, but anyway, she's getting her PhD right now in integrative oncology, and she's just a rad human being. And she, being a naturopath, so coming from a background of natural, I mean, if you saw her, she had dreadlocks in her early 20s. She was a hippie, and but now she has a very not that anything is unrespectable, I don't mean that, but you know what I mean. She dresses nice to go to work, so she's in a very different stage in her life.
The professional.
She doesn't have dreadlocks anymore, and she's getting her PhD.
Do you think people keep their dreadlocks when they cut them? Don't some people keep them?
Some people do. I think most of my friends who have had dreadlocks have not kept them.
What do they do with them? Burn them?
You could probably make them into compost. You can plant a tree with them.
And that's I have so many notes. I have so many questions for you, just because I'm fascinated by all this stuff. And
but anyways, just to finish off that, she is someone who she's had cancer as well, and so she's studying integrative oncology because she believes in. She also runs her own yoga practice, so she understands the importance of psychology during all of these really tough diseases.
Right.
And she also works with clients one-on-one as well as runs nutrition courses, so she believes in the power of nutrition, but she does not tell the patient not to get radiation or chemotherapy. She will bring them to the integrative oncologists, which are basically oncologists who will work with nutritionists, with yoga therapists, with things like that, because they realize it's a whole patient, that they have to treat the whole person and not just the disease.
Yeah.
And so those are the type of people that I want to align myself with, because I realize you only know what you know. I will never know what the oncologist knows unless I go into oncology, and they won't know as much nutrition as I know, honestly, because most doctors only take a semester of nutrition.
Oh, wow.
And so finding that middle ground where we can work together, I think is really valuable for the future.
I think that's weird that they only take one semester. I mean, I know they have a lot to learn.
They have a lot to learn,
the anatomy and physiology alone is enough to make me go, I don't know if I would ever be able to memorize that. I don't think I could do it. I wonder. I just think that our education system needs to continue to be updated now that we're gaining all this new information. We're still sticking to the same.
Oh yeah, that's a whole
exact syllabus that people from Anyway, that's all I'll say on the education system is I think that so many of the problems in the world could be fixed by helping our education system from K to PhD.
Yeah.
Like, people think if someone has a PhD that it must have been a perfect program or whatever. And for instance, I didn't finish my college degree because I was in a shitty program and I didn't see the reason to do it because the program was so bad. It was like, I'm better off going to actually do the job in person, and that's what happened. Mm-hmm. And like, in comparison to that, I know film directors who have never taken an acting class and film directors who have. The better director is the one that took the acting class because they're this rounded person that can speak on both things and integrate. I would have to imagine the same thing would be very beneficial for a doctor. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's stupid.
No, yeah.
So the person you're saying that had cancer is still alive, so survived cancer. Mm-hmm. I know you can't speak for them, but how much of the homeopathic side do you think is the reason that the survival happened?
So I think, again, I can't speak for them, but what I've come to see meeting a lot of cancer survivors and patients getting treated for cancer is that the ones who are told that they have, 6 months to live and there's not much left we can do usually die in 6 months. And I think that's a big psychological component.
I think so too.
And not to say that's for everyone, of course, people survive and people die regardless of what people say. But, honestly, the ones who fight, who are the cancer fighters and say, I'm going to do whatever it takes, are usually the ones who take a combination approach where they know they have to feed their body well and they have to move and they have to support themselves psychologically, and they surround themselves with groups of people who lift them up and empower them, and they go to therapy, as well as
start working out like crazy,
as well as they do what their doctors say, because doctors know the disease more than complementary therapists, but complementary therapists know the patient. And that's why I think they have to work together, because, I have also had a friend unfortunately die of cancer, and while she was going through chemotherapy was told to eat pancakes to gain weight. Like, she had to gain weight. She was losing a lot of weight, and the doctor's like, just eat as many pancakes as you want, don't worry, go crazy with your ice cream. And I was just thinking, you're telling this person who's trying to fight a disease to increase their sugar load? Like, how does that make sense?
Those aren't correlated. That's ridiculous.
So that's where, if you were talking to a nutritionist and say, hey, I want to gain weight, and be like, great, here's some healthy fats, let's get you on some complex carbohydrates, but make sure you have a good protein content, increase your raw, vegetables, things like that. And, that makes sense to me.
Me too. I don't have any specific cases that I would say on the microphone, but you're absolutely right about the mental side of it, because, and what I'm about to say has nothing to do with people that were bleeding or coughing or this or that, and then they go in, get checked, find out, you do have cancer. But people that go in for a routine checkup, find out they have cancer, the doctor says 6 months, they die in 6 months. Mm-hmm. That person, if they didn't go into the doctor to get that diagnosis for 6 months and then got it and then got told 6 months, would have lived a year, because you're right. I think that, and that's not factual. I'm not saying that's science, but I'm saying that has happened.
For sure.
Because I think the mental, and with all aspects of life, your mental strength, we can do so much. Again, caveman. We're closer to caveman than the future. Mm-hmm. We haven't figured out what our brains do yet. We don't even know.
It's crazy, yeah.
I'm not a, neuroscientist, but what I do know is that it's such a complex, it's not just a muscle. I don't like when people say your brain is a muscle. It's more than that. It's just the way the nerve endings are built. And, this isn't a religious podcast, not a political podcast, but if you look at how we're formed down to that neural level, it's a work of art. It's it's God. That is God right there to me. Or if you think about, to me it's the same thing as thinking about our galaxy and how it's put together. There's no way that wasn't created. Yeah, there's no way. I don't see any way about it. I was, this didn't just happen.
Yeah.
You know, or if you need more proof of like evolution or something too, that's also there. But do you remember this eye test thing that you
Iridology.
took a picture of an eyeball? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so one of our courses in college, as well as I was learning about it when I was working at the wellness center, was iridology, and that's looking at the irises of the eye to, see what's going on in the body, essentially. Not that it's a diagnostic tool, but it's one to see mainly your resilience to disease. But similar to reflexology, each section of the eye correlates to a different section of the body. And, reflexology, iridology, these are all ancient techniques that before we had CAT scans and MRIs, this is what people use. They realized how our body, and I guess how wonderfully and perfectly our body is made, and that it makes sense. And you're right, we haven't figured it all out. But obviously, and it's hard. Like, I haven't read enough studies to know exactly how accurate it is. But it's amazing anecdotal evidence how people have learned things from feeling the feet or from looking in the eye.
Sure.
And I don't discount what has been working for, centuries as well. That being said, now that we have CAT scans and MRIs and things like that, I think we have a way easier way to look at the body.
Sure.
We literally have pictures to see what's happening. But say for someone who doesn't want to get scanned or who is just interested in ancient medicine,
or doesn't have health care
maybe
because
doesn't have health care, whatever.
America.
Yeah, whole nother debate or topic.
Yep, I do that. I bounce around.
Yeah, but yeah, so that was really cool. I liked iridology a lot. I think the eyes are just cool anyway. And
tell the process of what is it like. So, what you did to me was you took a camera, got very close to my eyeball.
Yeah.
Put light on it, focused on
blinded you
on
only
it.
for a second.
Right.
Yeah. Came back mostly.
Yeah, really. And then looked at the picture on your DSLR, zoomed in, and what were you looking for? What did you look at? What did you see?
So there's a number of things. So you're looking for, they're referred to as liver spots, which are the brown specks in the iris. You can also look at around, in the white part of the eye, how, veiny it is, how red it is, that kind of is another telltale sign. And then you're actually looking at the fibers too. And with light eyes, like our, eyes, you can see
For the record, we both have blue, grayish eyes, some green specks in there.
But when you're looking at the fibers and, lighter color eyes, they're either very tight together, and you can't tell just by looking at someone for the most part, but
Right.
You can tell when you zoom in if they're very tight together or if they're more loose together. And I forget the name, but there's a certain type of iridology where that kind of talks about not only the physiology of the person, but the psychology of the person. So they call them flowers when they're kind of loose. They look like a flower going around the eye.
Yeah.
They look like petals because they're very loose fibers, and that's someone who's usually very open, but they're also very emotional. They're very, kind of wear your heart on your sleeve. They'll cry at things,
Are you
whatever.
describing me?
So that's the flower type, and then there's also the tightly wound ones, and it's kind of also personality traits. So they say the tighter fibers mean, you're more inward, you're more maybe introverted, or just you keep things in your head, but that also means you tend towards constipation and all these other
very tight. So
that's kind of what you're looking for in iridology.
Well, I mean, that's back to psychology. The people who are anxious, that anxiety will tear you up physically because you're carrying around stress in your muscles and in your tendons and in your bones constantly. Have you ever heard of the Alexander technique? Do you know what this is?
No.
Okay, this is interesting. You're going to like this. Now, actors take it because it's I'm going to get all artistic here.
Go for it.
So, as actors, it's our voice. It is obviously our brains and our hearts that bring the emotion. It's our voice to communicate the the speech, but a big part that a lot of actors don't pay attention to are their bodies, your posturing, how you carry yourself, where's your tension. I had an acting teacher, Ben Davis, and he's my favorite acting teacher I've ever had, because he was I don't mean he has a PhD in acting, but he was like a doctor of acting. And he wasn't scared to tell you to go see another teacher, because he would prescribe you, go see the voice teacher, Rowena Ballos, because you have something going on where your voice isn't able to do what you want it to do because of some reason. This happened to me. Mm-hmm. He sends me over to her, and that's the first time I ever took chakras seriously, is because she was breaking down, what an out-of-line chakra was, what aligning does for you. A lot of becoming a more free actor is a lot of therapy, to be honest with you, because a lot of actors are people who have, I'm not speaking for all of them, that's why I said a lot. A lot of actors are people who've been through a traumatic event or have some complex within their mind that makes them want to stand up in front of people and try to entertain them, or like dive into a character to be somebody else, or whatever it may be. And I have a lot of that, so I can just be like, yes, I'll raise the hand and be the person that admits that. Yeah. So anyway, Alexander Technique is a study of your posturing and how you carry yourself. The first exercise you do with any Alexander teacher is you just walk around in a circle. And somebody else, now you can do Alexander classes with one-on-one with your instructor, or you can do it in a group. I've only done it in a group. I'd like to do it one-on-one, but it's expensive. But anyway, so in the group, you'll walk around in a circle, and somebody will follow you. You'll walk around once, and they'll watch you, and then they'll walk behind you, and they'll mimic the way that you walk. And you'll watch that person and be like, oh my God.
That's how I walk.
Yeah, that's how I walk. It's like the first time you heard your voice, you're like, oh my God, that sounds or looks terrible, whatever. And so the teacher is then going to look at that and say, okay. So for me, I walk very, don't fuck with me is my walk. Mm-hmm. And I've been told that, and it's because I came from a rough neighborhood. I'm 5'7". I look the way I look. In the neighborhood I grew up in, you could be a target, right? And, I wanted to walk to be like, don't fuck with me. So that's what, and it still carries on to this day. And I live in like LA, like, not that there's not crime here, but I don't fear for things the way that I did in the neighborhood where like a block away there's like a crackhead motel where people are like literally getting shot and killed. And we're just ride on our bikes like, oh, look, another dead body. Huh, let's go play. Like, that's the neighborhood I grew up in. So it's like, you develop a walk. And definitely a psychology behind that. So, like, the Alexander Technique, like, diagnoses it. So you're thinking about why are you doing this, and then dealing with it. But also, like, correcting posturing that is providing anxiety to you. It's like it's a vicious cycle that goes on over and over again. So, like, when I walk like that, there's a lot of tension in my lower back, in my shoulders, in my chest. Because you're walking like, a gorilla or something, just, like, trying to scare people or something. I don't know. But I think there's so many different levels to how many problems we all have. Everyone has something going on. And something that they could be working on. Mm-hmm. And maybe all the answers aren't clear yet through people who are studying, whether it be like you studying nutrition, or like you said, like a doctor studying like the cure for cancer or whatever, which who knows when that's coming. Like, do you think that's my next question for you is like, how close do you think we are to getting rid of that?
Personally, I think it's a combo thing in the sense that we need to look at preventing it just as much as curing it. Mm-hmm. I think our environment plays a really large part in maybe the trend of cancer appearance. So, we're looking at what we eat, what we drink, our lifestyles, and trust me, I'm not anti electronic devices, but the amount of electronic devices and electricity and radiation around us constantly has changed. And like you said, it really has. Our human history really hasn't been that long, and I don't think we've evolved to keep up with the amount of technology and smog and everything around us. So when we're talking about looking for a cure for cancer, we also kind of have to look at, well, what can we do to prevent our likeliness of getting cancer as well?
Yeah.
So I'm super interested in the human body anatomy and physiology, but I'm also super passionate about preventive health on every level. So I think we're getting there. I think technology is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and there's so many people researching so many different aspects, and that's a whole nother conversation in terms of do I think money's being allocated correctly? No, things like that. So which sucks.
Yeah,
but
totally.
I think if we want to again, when we're looking long-term goals, if we want to reduce the amount of cancer in our population, we also have to start what's the root of the problem.
Totally. The conspiracy theorist in me is like, even if it's found, I wonder if,
or if it's already there.
Or if it's already there, right? Is it being withheld from us?
You know what? It's possible, but I tend to try to lean that there's more good people in the world than people out there, and I know there's a lot of greed.
You'll go crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is I know there's a lot of greed, and I know there's a lot of potential for bad people doing big things.
In America?
Everywhere. Life.
Yeah, totally.
But at the same time, I think, or I would hope that if there is, this miracle cure, that someone would leak it somewhere to get it out to the population.
WikiLeak that shit.
Hackers
get on it.
Hackers get on it.
No kidding.
Get into the deep web.
Yeah. The deep. This got weird quick. So I ask you, how's it helped you? Like, do you think, like, if you could put, like, a top 5 things that your consciousness on nutrition has helped you, what would those be?
The biggest thing for me has been labels. So, I mean, in high school, I had been vegetarian since elementary school. I went vegan in high school for a few years. I solidly identified with that, when you look, this is pre-Instagram and even pre-Facebook for me, or maybe just as you have bios everywhere, and
totally.
it would be like Taylor something vegan, that was part of it.
Oh, got it. Okay. It was a label of your identity. Yeah.
And then I was also really into blood type diet. I attached myself, and maybe it comes with growing and learning, but maybe it also comes with being in the nutrition field, but. I realized how detrimental labels are, because then when I realized I was unhealthy... What?
Is Barn whining?
Yeah, you come up.
Barn, you want to come sit over here? Here, go ahead and pull this chair next to you.
Come here.
He's a whiny boy. My dog Barney he's looking for attention right now. Pull your mic a little bit closer to you, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, so I think the biggest thing I learned was that, because at one point I was very unhealthy too. This was prior to having all the nutrition knowledge I had. I had low iron, very low blood pressure. I was passing out a lot. I know I wasn't consuming enough protein. I was at my lowest weight. But you still identify with but when I'm not vegan anymore, what will people think? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, honestly, first of all, people don't really care. Yes, there's going to be maybe someone who's like, oh, but I thought you were vegan. What are you doing eating that?
Sure.
Whatever.
But it's all a learning thing.
Yeah.
We can't be convinced,
But that's where I think the label thing is the biggest thing that I learned, was that I had if I felt great being a vegan, fantastic, but I shouldn't label myself as such. And if I didn't feel great being vegan...
By feel great, you mean consciously feel great.
Consciously and both physically.
Oh, you did feel physically...
No, I felt physically terrible.
Oh, so, okay.
That's what I mean. It's if I was feeling great, then...
a friend of mine who's vegan, and she goes and does, animal activism, all the time... Very passionate about it, but just had to go to the doctor and learned, well, you got to take these supplements because you're not getting X, Y, and Z. One of them was iron. The other was, I believe, protein. And so I was like, you're the one that got me to be like, maybe you should take a calcium, magnesium, and zinc supplement. You told me that. I took it. It did, whether it was...
placebo effect.
Placebo effect or not.
But
I
hey,
don't care. I don't care.
It just shows how powerful the mind is.
And you know this. There's so many studies on placebo effect. Fine.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's all half of it is mental.
Yeah.
So it made you. So you got it evened out. So you don't eat meat though, right? Or do you?
I eat what makes me feel good.
Okay, so you just go with it.
And so my approach now is I live a balanced lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I really try to hone in on what my body needs at specific times, because even when my activity levels fluctuates, when I'm training for a marathon, I eat totally differently than when I'm not. I'll eat chicken occasionally. I'll eat turkey occasionally. I'll eat seafood.
Bacon cheeseburgers?
Every day. I forgot to mention that. 3 times a day at least. No, I definitely don't. I don't eat red meat. I don't know what differentiates. Maybe part of it is like the environmental cost. Maybe, I'm not a huge fan of how the meat industry is run at the moment.
Well, it's not run well. And then if you go with the climate change.
Yeah. So I mean, like, and trust me, like, if I felt good eating 100% vegan, I would. I don't miss that kind of stuff. That being said, like, when I come over and hang out, I like having like cheese and crackers and things like that. But again, when it comes down to my health, I look at both the macro and micronutrients, what I'm eating and consuming, and I eat what makes me feel good. And a lot of it tends to be fresh vegetables and fruits and complex carbohydrates and good sources of protein and healthy fats.
How much of you feeling good eating it is the mental, because you know based upon your studies that you're putting something good into your body?
I think it's a combination of both. So, number one, you're right, I do look at food probably different than some people in the sense that I know not specifically, but I know kind of generally what macro and micronutrients I'm consuming at any given time. And so I think, this is a really well-balanced meal. I'm going to eat it feeling good. I'm not going to I'm not going to have any guilt. My cortisol levels will be low.
Yeah.
I won't be spiked with adrenaline, like things like that. And so I'll consume it and it'll make me feel good. So, I think they both play a significant component to it.
I think so. Okay, so this is a weird interview, and I'm just going to keep bouncing around. But now we're going to go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So I do intros to my shows, but I'm going to reintroduce you after a 50-minute go. So you are Taylor Bouknight.
Yes.
You are by the time this is released, you will be my wife's sister. Yeah.
Welcome to the family.
Yeah. So I'm going to pretend like I don't know you and try to be a professional interviewer. Where were you born? Where are you from?
I was born in California. I think technically the hospital is in Beverly Hills, but I grew up in...
Oh, you're at Beverly Hills. Oh,
yeah, I'm pretty posh now. I mean, that's where the hospital was. But yeah, no, I grew up in Santa Clarita.
And what are your thoughts on Santa Clarita? Enough said. Moving on.
Yeah.
And then, so Shannon did an episode. So we covered that, your dad's an editor. Mm-hmm. Your mom is literally super mom. She irons her own cape.
Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic. So we sort of covered that. So listeners, if you haven't heard the Shannon Bouknight episode, go back and you can get more of that. I only have so many minutes with you, so I'm going to skip that part and go to, you went to high school. As a kid, what were your interests, like, before you got in all this? Like, what other interests outside of this discovery path of nutrition and health what was your thing?
I mean, we were definitely a very creative family, so... I was playing piano from a really young age, and I was very much into the arts in high school and junior high. But going into high school, I went to a different high school than Shannon did. So Shannon went to the performing arts high school in our, out of our public high schools, and I went to the one that was known for show choir, and show choir was not my jam. So I did tech crew for my freshman year, and so I did all the behind the scenes audio stuff, which I liked. It's kind of, engineering. I got to still be around it all. And I did drama, which we didn't have the best drama department, but I had fun, and I was the captain of our improv team and all that stuff.
Yes.
But so I kind of for lack of a better word, suffered through that for 3 years before I realized, oh, I can just transfer to the other high school. And so my senior year I did, and my senior year was the bomb because I took 3 choirs, drama, and then I took history and English.
Just
and that was
straight up performing boot camp.
And that was my senior year, and I got to play jazz piano for the jazz band, and I sang in concert choir and women's choir, and did drama. And
how often do you play piano? Do you still play a lot? Like, how often do you get to play?
I should be practicing more than I am.
But you're a little busy.
I'm a little busy.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would love to do a really casual, like, I'd be in a band that's just super just for fun and jamming, because that's, I can still sight read and all that stuff, but I don't practice like I did, with all the classical sonatas and...
I'd like to do that too. One that's not like trying to go do gigs or be famous or anything.
No, just for fun.
Just for funsies. Maybe we should just start something, because I play guitar, but I don't push myself as hard as I should because I don't have anybody to answer to. I don't want to go out and do gigs, though.
Yeah.
That's not why I do it. I just want to get better, and I want to play, and I want to have fun.
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk about that. So you did dance, though. You danced for a long time. When did you start dancing?
I danced, preschool to high school. I did, I think, 12 years of dance.
Mainly
tap, jazz, ballet, hip hop, and point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What was your favorite?
I loved tap, and then when I got on point, I really...
You be quiet. You're not part of this podcast.
Please. I really enjoyed point, but by that point my feet were trashed, and I only did that for 2 years.
Barn, quiet.
You can come here.
You just heard the bell. Yeah, I mean, what age did you start point? Did you start too young? Is that what trashed your feet?
No, I mean, you look at anyone who goes on point,
it's not good.
Their feet are trashed. But I think I also have this weird bone deformity thing in the back of my feet. So
yeah, you get like bone spurs and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
I forget what it's called, but it's like a genetic thing, and that kind of, I think, maybe trashed them faster.
I think it's bone sporitis. I believe that's the medical term.
Yeah, that sounds...
That's it. I'm a doctor.
Sounds accurate.
Okay, so you're into dancing, and I believe, didn't you have a friend that, tell me about the Warped Tour, as if I don't know what the Warped Tour is.
Warped Tour was my summer jam.
R.I.P., right?
Yeah. Oh, man. I wish I had gone this past summer for the last round, but Warped Tour was, all the punk rock bands of, the early 2000s, and every summer they would tour around the U.S., and they had a large, West Coast base of the tour. And so pre-high school, or maybe pre-junior high, my friend Molly and I would watch, MTV and Fuse and do the countdowns, and we were so into music videos, and we had to know the new songs of the week, or else we were, behind.
Yeah.
That was our homework, was you had to go home and watch MTV or Fuse.
Love it.
And then there was this
Was
thing.
TRL not cool to you?
TRL.
What?
What's that?
Total Request Live with Carson Daly.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Okay, yes. No, that was
okay, so
that was the thing, but that wasn't my thing.
I'm a few years older than you.
Yeah.
So I think your thing was the thing after my thing wasn't cool anymore.
My thing was all about watching the countdowns of music videos.
Which is what TRL was.
Okay, then.
It was a countdown of the most requested songs of pop music. And I remember when Eminem came and Marshall Mathers LP dropped, The Real Slim Shady was out, and that video was bonkers because up until then hip hop was mostly Thug Life, Tupac, and then you got goofy Eminem bouncing around saying ridiculous shit. And it was, and then not to mention all these bands back then, early 2000s, which I don't want to listen to any of now.
Yeah.
But I was so, like you said, you would race home and you were so excited to see where they were gonna land, and you like you said, you had to see them. Yeah. I mean, is that still a thing for kids? Do they do that? Do they watch TV, or is it just
I think
YouTube
it's YouTube.
stuff?
Yeah, it's the which I don't even know outside of YouTube how people, or the gym, how people watch music videos. There's no.
I only watch music videos now on YouTube,
and it's only if I hear it shared on Facebook. I won't go out and look for a
no way.
Music video.
If it's not hot, if it's not trending, I'm not gonna watch it. But is there a show on YouTube now that is a countdown of the best songs like it used to be?
I'm sure there is.
There's an open market.
I'm almost positive there's a thing like that. I'm just not in that scene.
Yeah, I guess.
But check it out.
I'll go interview some young folk. They know what's going on.
But yeah, Warped Tour.
So Warped Tour. So how did you? So you've been multiple times, yes?
Yeah. So I was obsessed with Warped Tour before I ever went, and then in junior high I made not because of this reason.
Are you sure?
I didn't know this meeting her. I became really good friends with Becky, and we had actually been friends for a while, maybe even like a year or two before she was like, "Oh, my uncle's the creator of Warped Tour," and that was the jaw hit the floor type of what moment. And then since then, that was our summer thing. Was we got to do like backstage. I met a lot of bands. Like I met 303 and like We the Kings and Simple Plan and Hello Goodbye and just like anyone.
What's your favorite? Did you have a favorite? What's your favorite? Like are you? It's like
of music or
just of those bands, of those Warped Tour bands. Like who was your favorite? Maybe that you saw or didn't see.
Yeah. I mean, Real Big Fish was always such a fun crowd, and who else? I think We the Kings was actually a really fun concert because I was really obsessed with them that year, and we met them. And then there's this one, she's not really well known, but she was on every Warped Tour. Her name was Tatiana. She went by Tat. And she was like the Joan Jett type of, like, she was just a badass
lady.
Female, played guitar, sweating, like, just, she rocked out. And so in terms of going to concerts, those were definitely some of my favorites.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So go to high school, you're performing, kind of a punk rocker, playing the music. And then you graduate high school, and then what happens?
So worked at the wellness center.
Mm-hmm.
Then I saved up a bunch of money and went traveling in the UK with my cousin, and that's where I stumbled upon the College of Natural Medicine. And I was like, I want to go to school outside the United States, but I didn't want to go to London. I liked London. It was too hectic for me. And so I was just in my hotel room and I Googled international nutrition schools, and one in Perth, Australia came up, and I applied while I was abroad. And by the time I came home, I'd been accepted, and I was like, hey, I'm going to go to school in Australia.
Wow. And you just did it.
Yeah, I didn't know anyone. People ask me why Perth. I said, I had no idea.
That's where the school was.
It was where the school was.
Yeah.
And I moved there right before I turned 19.
So you start working at the wellness center because it was a high school credit, and then you begin working there full time for actual dollars.
Yes.
And then you just was it just like how like what am I trying to say? Okay, so there's so many people who don't have a direction or a purpose, so they don't really know what to do. How did you know?
So this is one thing I always talk about. I was the well-rounded kid. I tried a little bit of everything, and that's great because
that is great.
But I was never the kid who was like, I'm going to be a veterinarian when I grow up, and then grew up, became a vet, and then life was happily ever after. Like, I had no idea what I wanted to be. I liked science, but I liked music. Part of me wanted to go into psychology. Part of me wanted to go into music, but I'm just not that competitive of a person. Like, I knew that wasn't my, personality type. And so I've always been on the right path, but you asked me now what I want to be, and I still don't know exactly. I think if I'm giving advice, know the things about yourself that you don't want to give up and just start pursuing that. Because I've always wanted to help people. That's been high on my priority list.
Totally.
I am really fascinated by the science of food as well as humans. And I'm really passionate about health in my own life. And all of those things are still leading me in this direction of preventative health, public health, food science. And I just grab every opportunity I can. Like, I'll intern anywhere, I'll take volunteer work or whatever, because I think that will lead me to finding what I want my next job to be as well.
What's the I don't even know the statistic, but they say what people have 3 careers over the course of their lifetime or something like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's a good thing. I think it's I I think the career mindset, and I have used the C word of career a billion times already, probably not exaggerating, and the more I think about it, A, it bores me, and B, it is so limiting to the experience of life. Within the last year and a half, I've allowed myself to have interests outside of acting and film and theater. And it's been awesome to let myself like think about my love of space and dinosaurs and just science overall. I've always loved science. When I was a kid, I was first things I was drawing were rockets and dinosaurs. Like that was, I remember taping. I would get printer paper, which is, I don't know what the inches are on a piece of paper, what 8 by like 13 or whatever it is, and I taped them all together in the shape of a Tyrannosaurus Rex so that I could draw a wall-sized T-Rex as a child and color it in. And I remember, I still remember that as being like super fun, and I look at that as an adult and go, well, that kid should have done something with that. And because our society, especially in America, is so like career focused, and you got to know what you're doing, and you got to have a passion, and it can only be one thing, and you got to go to college, and you can only have one major. Not really, but they kind of push you like, what's your major? What's the one thing you want to do?
They do that at 17.
Yeah, at 7, like, get out of my face.
Like, I don't know what I want to do.
Like, I'm 31. I still love acting. I'm never going to quit. But at the same time, as soon as we're done with this podcast, Neil deGrasse Tyson's going to be talking out of that TV over there. I'm going to listen to him talk about planets. And so I respect that you say openly and confidently, I don't know. And you have this freedom about you, and everyone's looking for freedom, and you seem to have captured that. How do you think you've done that?
I think it may be unintentionally. I mean, like, I just don't like stagnancy.
Yeah.
That's why I would be a student for the rest of my life if I could, but not to escape work and things like that. I think maybe sticking to one career, the idea of sticking to one career or one major or whatever for the rest of your life kind of breeds stagnancy. You know, it's like it doesn't give you that wiggle room. And so I will never lose the nutrition knowledge that I have. You know, I graduated college as a nutritionist, and people are like, oh, but you're not a practicing nutritionist. And I'm like, but I still have all that knowledge just because I don't have my insurance for it, you know?
Right.
And so, like you said, how cool would it be if someone came from that background and then like went into the medical field? And so, I mean, a big part of me has always wanted to be a surgeon, and you know, you always think like, oh, is it too late and all this stuff? And I think all of the knowledge that I have would only benefit me if that's the field I chose to go into.
I just had a thought that if somebody woke up from their surgery, they're a little groggy, and they look at you and go, "Are you the Tumeric Latte girl?"
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be hilarious.
That'd be fantastic. But yeah, I don't know how, like, even with travel, I think maybe that's just part of my personality is I like freedom, and I liked, you know, living out of a van, and I liked, you know,
going for it.
Like just having that freedom to do so. So it's like, I'm back in school now, and I'll probably be a student for a while, you know. I
don't think that's a bad thing.
No,
I think that's a good thing.
You know, a big part of me knows that like, oh, well, I'm still progressing in my field. All I'm doing is opening more doors, but people are seeing it as I'm behind, you know, like.
I hate that.
Yeah. And
you know what, we talk about labels. Here's a label that I love. Lifelong learner. I love that because it's so free. That's a free label. That's
yeah.
I took that and I was like,
yeah.
And that's now mine.
And that's how, you know, we should kind of choose how to define ourselves, but also be okay when things shift, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like when people ask me what my career is, that's such a weird question because the job I have right now is fantastic, you know, with Tumeric Latte Mix, and I think it's going to open so many doors for me, and I've learned so much about business that I never went to school for.
There you go. You got your business degree without having to study it.
Yeah, that was, you know, starting a startup, you learn so much. But I guess like I just like having open doors and knowing that I can still be whatever I want when I grow up.
Exactly. So you have ran marathons.
Yes.
I don't do segues anymore. I'm just jumping in. So talk about okay, so when did you run your first marathon?
My first full marathon?
Yeah.
I ran my first,
What was your first thing? A half or
so I've only run one full marathon.
Oh,
I've
okay.
run 8 half marathons now.
So 4 marathons plus a full marathon.
yeah, that's the distance.
Okay. I don't love running. I run so that I can look okay. I run enough so that when I'm on camera, I don't hate myself. To run for fun, I respect so much, and you've inspired me so much. And every day, I'm like, because I would love to do a marathon. How do you do that?
I am not a good runner. So don't think oh yeah, I'm just breezing by and love every mile.
You're just running it like Rocky every day?
No way. I started running because I was broke and couldn't afford a gym membership. And so in college, and especially in the other side of the world in Australia, I was just well, what can I do that keeps me in shape and is free as long as you have a good pair of shoes, was running. And so I got really into it, and I thought it would be cool. On my bucket list was always to run a half marathon. I was I never have to run a full marathon in my life. A half marathon's a big enough accomplishment, and it'll be fine. And so I signed up to do the City to Surf, and that was when I was interning at Cancer Support WA, so I decided to raise money for cancer support for running City to Surf. And that was... From now, I know the hardest road half marathon to sign up for your first go, because there's so many hills. The first 6 miles are uphill.
No.
With little flats.
Not
it goes
doing
through Kings Park, and it's just crazy. And then you get a bunch of flats, and then your last quarter of a mile is uphill.
Oh my God.
And it was so hard. And honestly, at mile 7, I was gonna fake an injury and be and just have someone drive me to the finish line. And I was that's enough of a workout. I ran 7 miles today. I should be proud of that. But I finished it.
Oh my God.
So yeah, and I finished it very slowly. But anyways, so from there, it got easier and easier. I signed up for different half marathons. It does become therapeutic, and I know everyone's the runner's high doesn't exist, whatever. I'm a slow runner. That first half marathon, my average time was 11:33 a mile.
Oh, geez.
It was slow.
Yeah.
I've increased my speed since then.
There's a lot of people that can't even do that. But,
yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
But you know what I mean?
8-minute mile is if I run 8:36, I hate myself.
Yeah. So it's that was...
But I can't do... How many miles are in a marathon?
13.1.
I can't run...
A full marathon is 26.2.
I can't run 26 miles at 8 minutes. There's no way. So
yeah.
some of my... I would run the first mile in 8, and then the rest of them in 20. That's probably how mine would go.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you run these marathons. You run 8 halves and a full. Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
And now I'm really into trails. So when you delve into a hobby, you find a whole community that's just obsessed with it. And so I got some really great running friends back in Australia, and I started reading books and started, following runners on Instagram and stuff like that to get my motivation. And there's runners, which are, for speed. I follow a lot of, the Olympic runners and things like that. But there's a whole trail running community, and I listen to Trail Runner Nation podcast, so shout out to them. But they specifically talk about, ultras and things like that are through trails. And that's a whole nother ball game. And that's what I've been running through the Xterra series here in Southern California. And they're beautiful. I love it because it's nature and running combined.
Barton, I can hear you eating. You're ruining the podcast.
I'm hungry.
He's so hungry. So I have a buddy of mine. He did I'm gonna look this up real quick so I can not talk up my ass. But he did it was a 4-day thing, and he was running through mountains and stuff like that, and I think I don't know if it was a triathlon or not, but it was multiple days. I think it was just running actually. Mm-hmm. But it was multiple days of doing it and camping and then getting up and doing it, and that sounds exciting to me. That would make me just feel like a wild, just caveman, just really getting in touch with the natural side of who we are as animals, and being able to run and live off of the land and even though you're still doing like gel packs and things like that, right? Like eating super futuristic food, but still like, you know, moving through. It's different when you're running, like if you do like a 10K down the street.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, you ran on the sidewalk for, you know,
yeah,
an
it's a
hour
totally
or so
different vibe.
Yeah, I would love to go out there and really do it.
Yeah.
I'm not big on camping anymore. I was forced to go a lot as a kid, but I would do it for that. Just to like have that sort of experience. What's that movie? Not Wild at Heart. What was it called? Into the Wild?
Which one?
It had the kid. Oh.
Is it the guy or the girl? Because there's Wild with Reese Witherspoon.
Not that one,
that
but
was
I
a great
love that
book.
one too.
And then there's Into the Wild.
Into the Wild with what the hell's his name? It was directed by Sean Penn, I know that. Great movie, and it made me like, there's something that was like, it was like the movie equivalent of like reading on the road and wanting to go do a road trip or something.
Yeah.
Like, it was very inspiring to me to like, oh, that'd be so fun to like go out into the wild. I don't want to die like his character did or anything.
I was gonna say spoiler. That's the one where he dies in the end. But yeah, that's another great.
What's that kid's name? He was in Speed Racer and Girl Next Door. And hold on, I just have to look it up. Emil Hirsch. That's what it is. Would you do something like that?
Totally. So there's the Bibbleman track.
They're expensive though, no?
Doing one of those?
Yeah.
I mean, it can be. So it depends on what you do. So like, there's the Pacific Coast Trail, which is the one that they did. She did in Wild. Blanking on her name, but and then there's the Bibbleman track in Australia, which I actually have a friend doing right now. And so essentially what it is you can plan it out however you want. It just depends on like, how many miles or kilometers you're hiking or running per day.
Right.
And you pack everything you need with you. And usually it's about 3 to 5 days in between sites. So you'll actually be in the wild for that time, like camping and whatever. And then you'll get to a site that usually has a post box. So you can mail yourself things in advance, like re-ups on food and whatever it is.
Dear future me, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. But the crazy thing was Cheryl Strayed. That was who did the Pacific Coast Trail. She had so little money going into this because she bought all this like new REI equipment and stuff. And so
I don't know what that is.
REI is like an outdoor store.
Oh, okay.
Like Patagonia or whatever.
Okay.
But it's too tempting to go there because I could buy so many things.
Totally.
But anyway, so she just bought like all this new camping equipment that she really didn't have much money to send to herself in these future locations to like, because you can go. A lot of people will stay in a motel one night just so they can shower or whatever and then keep going for the next 3 days.
God, a shower when you're running like that must just be orgasmic at that point, just because, especially if you don't do it for the first 3 days or whatever and then you go on a fourth day. Oh my God. I would take a 90-minute shower.
Yeah.
I would just sit there and cry.
They're cool. I would totally do something like that.
I would do it. I think I would definitely do it. I would want to really train for it though.
Yeah, not... it's a little different. I really want to do an ultra at some point in my life.
So tell me what an ultra is, because it's an ultra marathon.
Anything longer than a marathon distance. So they usually start at 50K because a marathon's 42K. Mm-hmm. But 50K is, to me, not that it's cheating. 50K is a great accomplishment, but it's only like 8K more than a marathon. Mm-hmm. So really, I think
you want like an ultra.
It starts at like 50 miles. So like there's 50Ks, 50 miles, and 100 miles are the most common.
How long do you have to do it? Like
usually it's like 60 hours or something like that. But there's some cool documentaries to check out. But like the Tahoe 200 is notoriously bad. One of the greatest ones are the Barkley marathons. So and that's such a cool documentary. I think it's on Netflix, and it's a looped course, and you have to do 5 loops to complete. They call 3 loops a fun run, but each loop is essentially a marathon.
Oh my God.
And it's through the most rugged, like, back country you could think of, and people come back bloodied and bruised and stuff.
I love it. Oh, I love that.
Usually, on average, 0 to 3 people actually finish every year. So
yeah, I buy that.
Yeah, like people will finish the fun runs, people will make it halfway through the course or whatever, but between 0 and 3 people will finish.
What is the name of that area where like the Flintstones was filmed up near Santa Clarita, the Rocks? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like it's a bunch of these like rock formations.
Near Santa Clarita. I'm not sure.
Shannon would tell me she knows. She took me there. Anyway, it was like all these rocks and stuff. I know I would love something like that because of this. She took me out there, and it's just rocks. Big rocks. Mm-hmm. Within 5 minutes, I'm running around climbing on these things like a 5-year-old. My shirt is off and tied around my head, and I'm just like screaming into the sky, and just I know that if I started it, I know there'd be times I'd want to just like die just because I'd be so tired and beat down. But I know for most of it, especially if I have the right soundtrack, I would just get like tribal drums and just and just go for it.
Totally.
Have fun with it. I would love to do that.
Yes. Oh man, if you have the right music, it is the bomb hiking through stuff.
Yeah. You gotta have the right soundtrack. Yeah. It's very important. And you've jumped out of an airplane. Yeah. That's number 1 on my bucket list.
A couple times, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta go do that within I'm gonna give myself a year. If I don't do it within a year, I'm gonna be very disappointed.
It's good. I highly recommend.
And how many times have you done
that? 3 times.
Wow. First time with somebody?
The first time was my 18th birthday. And yeah, I went with a good friend of mine, Johnny. And the best part of that is we land and you're full of adrenaline, and I think my mom has it on video, we run towards each other, and I just jump into like a bear hug with him, because you're just like, that was the coolest thing. I was 18, I just jumped out of a plane.
You survived falling from the sky.
It was awesome.
What elevation did they drop you from? Do you remember?
That's a good question.
Because like 30,000 feet isn't, what is it, 30,000 miles? What is it? How high does an airplane go when you're on a commercial airline?
You're asking me the wrong questions.
I'm going to have to do a fact check like it's the Dak Shepard show at the end of this.
Yeah. But there are different...
It's because it's not... They don't drop you from as high just because the oxygen...
Oh, yeah, oxygen levels. Yeah, I know. 10,000? Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's probably right. 10,000
So there's different levels. I know, like, obviously the super advanced jumpers can jump from... they can jump with, like, oxygen.
The mask, yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, get to a point where they can remove the mask.
Tom Cruise can do that.
I didn't do that.
No, well, yeah.
I jumped out of a normal airplane at like height. I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, doing it at all is cool. Would you bungee?
I have bungee.
You have bungee?
Yeah.
That scares me more than jumping out of an airplane.
It's a million times scarier.
I can't do that.
Because when you're jumping out of an airplane, you're not actually jumping out of an airplane. You're jumping tandem. It's your first time. Someone's back there. Literally, you're hanging over this thing, and they're the ones holding on. They're like, "You're ready?" And you're like, "I guess so," because I'm just like dangling over the edge of this airplane.
Just a baby doll.
Yeah, and so then they just go 1, 2, 3, and you're out. And also, you don't see the ground. You see, you're
everything.
You free fall for 60 seconds, I think, and then they pull the parachute. And then it's just cool. You're just on a ride, and he let me take the reins of the parachute, and you're just kind of like floating on down. It was beautiful. When you're bungee jumping, you're jumping off of something. I jumped off of a bridge
with just a string tied, a stretchy string tied to your feet.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like your body doesn't know that you're tied to something that's going to keep you safe. Your body think you're jumping to your death.
How many people do you think have had minor heart attacks doing bungee?
Dude, I don't know.
Probably a lot, right?
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. It was terrifying. But
no, I don't think I could. That's not even on my bucket list. Like, I like to do crazy shit. That's not on my bucket list.
I'm glad I did it, but
totally,
it was insane.
I don't know. Maybe in another 10 years, but bungee.
I'll do it. Why not?
So okay, I don't even know where I'm at anymore. So tell me what it was like to live in Australia, because you lived there for 5 years. Yeah. Tell me about that.
It was awesome. I love Australia. The original plan was just going for school, so I was going to be there for 2 years. And then I fell in love with it. I got a job, and I lived on the West Coast the whole time.
West Side?
Yeah, I did visit.
Was that a thing? Was throwing up the W's a thing there, or is it just California?
Just California. California. Mm-hmm. No, the thing there was beer. But I visited the East Coast, and it was awesome, but there's just something about Perth that I fell in love with.
So it's a very sort of, I don't like the word hippie because it's almost like, sounds like an insult, but like it's a very hippie-ish culture, yeah.
Fremantle, yeah. So Perth is the only major city in Western Australia, and then there's a bunch of, like suburbs and stuff around it, and then there's country towns and things. But I say I lived in Perth, I really lived in the Fremantle area.
Right.
And that
it's
was...
like me saying I lived Chicago, but
Yeah.
like we were a little away.
Or like even, me in Santa Clarita saying I'm from LA just for
there you
people,
go. That's a
like
better example,
telling people like for context, I live in LA, and then someone who actually knows LA knows I live in Santa Clarita.
Yeah.
So I say I lived in Perth, but I lived in Fremantle.
Gotcha.
And it's a beachy community. It's very arts-centered and community-focused. It has community gardens everywhere. Everyone's super environmentally conscious. You can ride bikes everywhere. There's bike lanes everywhere. They want you to, be smart about it. They have great public transport. All privately owned coffee shops. Like, it is, like, for lack of a better word, hippie community in the sense that they take pride in everything, and everything's very arts-driven and community-focused. And it was such a joy living there.
What are their thoughts on, like, what did you feel like as an American, like, sort of becoming part of their community? What did they think of you, or what did you find that they thought of Americans? I'd hate to, you haven't been there since 2016, so I'd hate to hear what they say now, but back then, what was the sort of viewpoint of you as an American?
It definitely wasn't like anywhere negative. I think Australians are just pretty welcoming and like, oh, where's your accent from? Cool. Like, that was kind of their response. But also Fremantle had a lot of, and Perth in general, because of where you're coming from, like, you're close to Asia and stuff like that. You get a lot of travelers. We had a lot of hostels and backpackers around. So, you're meeting Canadian. To be honest, I think when people heard I was American, they were shocked because, one, Americans don't really travel that much, and to get to Perth of all places, they're usually going into Sydney, Melbourne areas. Sorry, Melbourne.
Now, okay, so there's a lot of acting teachers out here that have schools there, and they say Melbourne.
Melbourne.
And it's like, you don't have that
Brisbane,
accent. Just say Melbourne, right?
Melbourne. I don't know.
There's part of me that's like, but you're American, right? But like, I love that there's a love of that culture so much that they're like, we'll say it the way that you say it for you. It's like it's like a thumbs up to them, like, love you so much, I'll say it your way.
Yeah.
No,
it's funny, but I think it's also for me, like, living there for so long, now I'm kind of in this weird limbo where I'm transitioning back into, California, LA speak.
Oh, well, I could...
I go back and forth between herb and herb. I say tomato and tomato. I say,
What is the, there's a foil that people wrap around
aluminium. I say aluminum now.
Well, when you first came back, too, and, okay, so I can comment on this, for Shannon working with, there's a lot of Brits that work on AGT that came from BGT, Britain's Got Talent, to America's Got Talent. So she would come home and raise her note at the end of raise her pitch at the end of her sentences.
For sure, yeah.
Which is a very British thing to do. Like
an Australian thing.
An Australian, right? So, like, that would rub off on her. When you first came back from Australia,
everything
it did rub
up?
off.
Yeah,
big time.
Yeah.
People were like, are you asking a question? Or, oh, no, it rubbed off. Got it. Okay,
no,
cool.
everything ends up, and also Australians will end sentences with but. So they'll be like, and so when I first moved there, I thought they were, like, I don't know what I thought. They would say, oh yeah, I had a really good meal at this coffee shop in Fremantle, but, and I was like,
but what?
And you're just waiting for their response to, like, what did you do yesterday? I was like, but you said but.
Well, that's the end of the story, yeah.
No, I had a really good, coffee at this cafe, but.
Okay. Yeah, and then you probably thought everyone was nuts for the... So, I had another one. Oh, shit, I had one. Oh, you did another thing. Oh, the way that they say a total of money was different. Like, I would say that's $10.39. Where you would say... Oh, how did you say it? I can't remember. You'd be like, $10.39 or something.
Oh, yeah,
like
$10.39. You don't put cents at the end, right?
No.
Yeah.
Where that's very American. We'll say cents at the end. We're very, again,
I didn't even realize that was a thing.
Totally. We're very much, you're right, we're very much about labels here in America.
Yeah.
So you, and I have never left as long as you have, but I've left my home state for 7 years, and I've traveled a lot. Not as much as I wish I had, but enough that I have an opinion, or I've been able to see the difference between America and other countries. Leaving that long, did you come back and were you surprised about, oh wow, I never saw this when I lived here as an American, and now I suddenly see it?
Yes.
Be honest.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things, and it sounds like I keep, like, saying Australia is, like, so much better, and it's not that. It's just I think maybe I resonated with Australia so much in a lot of aspects. They're much more laid back.
Totally.
One story that I always say is the first time I asked for a holiday from the job that I was working at.
That means vacation.
Yeah, I was going on holiday. So I wanted to come back to the States for probably Christmas or something. And I was only going to ask for a week off. And I was very nervous. I had had the job for almost a year. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask. Can I go to my boss? I was like, look, I really want to go visit my family. And so I was wondering if I could take a week off. And he's like, oh, where are you going? I was like, oh, I'm going to go back to California. He said, for a week? And I thought he was like,
for a whole week?
Yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, if
so
that's
sorry.
okay,
Yeah,
like
is that
if that's
cool?
okay, and he's like, you're gonna go all the way to America for a week? Why not take 2?
Yeah.
And I was just like,
Okay.
are you off?
Yeah.
Are you telling me to take a longer holiday? I was like, all right. So, but that was just a very that wasn't so much a laid back attitude, and also I give credit to my boss for that. We resonate
Cool,
well.
dude.
Yeah, but it just. Things could kind of be as they are, and people were, you still get the city kind of pretentious vibe in areas, but I guess it just wasn't.
What do you mean? Like, what kind of pretentiousness or pretension? What's the right word there? Pretentiousness. I don't know if the right word. Fact check. So what do you mean by that?
I don't know how to articulate this the best, but I always feel like in LA in general, when you're walking around, there's always kind of like a shitty Instagram filter over everything,
Oh
like
my God, it's everywhere.
people,
That's one of my questions.
Yeah, like people are just fake, and even the real ones are kind of fake. Like it's just this.
I'm not really here right now.
Yeah, exactly. We've been Skyping this whole time.
This isn't real. This is all a ruse.
None of this is recording. We're just talking with microphones.
And I definitely want an answer to what you were about to say, but that's what I like about this about doing a podcast like this is I get to talk to people. I've looked at my phone only for looking for something for this podcast. I haven't done it I haven't scrolled. I've stayed in this conversation. You've stayed in this conversation. It's been completely genuine. Yes, we are talking to each other a little bit differently because there are microphones.
Yeah.
But I get to talk to you and ask you these questions. I've known you for years now, and I'm getting answers. These are questions that I think people will find interesting, find your answers interesting. But I like that we can actually talk like this. This is great to be able to, find out the things about you. That's the beauty of this, is, it kind of, because I insulted podcasts 2 episodes ago, where I was like, it's like the lowest form of art. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, but regardless of what artistic merit it may have, because we don't know what a podcast is yet, because it's, again, in baby stages, I think there's something really cool about it, because we can go back to when we didn't have a phone burning on our hip, before we were cyborgs. We can go back to that, connect as human beings. I can ask you questions. I don't feel that you've been self-conscious about anything. Maybe there's something that you're like, I'm going to talk about this now, or whatever it may be, but I think there's a beauty to that.
Definitely.
So is that what you sort of felt there? They still have that?
Yeah, and again, also, I could have just been in my Fremantle bubble, because I feel like there's definitely a Fremantle bubble in the sense that it was a very unique community, and maybe that's just when you find your community, that's how you feel type of vibe. But, I lived in a couple different houses, all with my rotating kind of group of friends, which was cool. Even that was a community. How we all lived in share houses together, and how our roommates would kind of change, but it was all the same friend circle type of thing.
Right.
But we rarely watched TV because we were always going to live music gigs, and we were riding bikes, and we would watch the sunset together every Friday night. And
what?
Yeah,
every Friday.
Every Friday night.
Let's get together and watch the sunset.
And it wasn't like you had to be there, but it was a standing thing where everyone knew you would just meet at South Beach on Friday night to watch the sunset, and everyone was welcome. And
because there was no pressure, you probably go more often.
Yeah, and you bring some beer, or you bring something to snack on, and the dogs ran around, and that was just a standing invitation.
See, that shows me that there's hope. for humanity is that we still care that the sun sets, and that we still take time to take a second to watch the beauty of, our planet spinning around our star. It's beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of my questions, was going to be like, is social media as big a deal? It's not. There's no way it's as big of a deal there as it is here.
I mean, yes and no. Again, I feel like the Fremantle bubble definitely wasn't.
Right.
And maybe even Perth in general is quite a different place. But I mean, social media is still a big thing in major cities, and Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and probably Perth as well. There's still influencers coming out of Australia and things like that. So
there's a lot of actors that have been coming out of there. Like, there's a lot of talent there.
Yeah.
I only Crocodile Dundee, Taylor lived there, Perth, Sydney,
Margot
Melbourne, Margot Robbie, and
Heath
the
Ledger.
Opera House, Heath Ledger, and like the talent that comes out of there is the same as the talent that comes out of England. They don't fuck around.
Yeah.
They're hard workers. The ones that want to do that lifestyle have a weird amount of ambition.
Yeah.
And they
Well,
they come here and they go all out.
Maybe it's an access thing where when you're here, it's like, oh, I'm always surrounded by this. So what my opportunities today will be same as my opportunities tomorrow, type of thing.
3 weeks from now.
Yeah, where I met Mike Passenger, of Passenger, who wrote the Let Her Go song, and it's blown up and all that stuff. He was
It sounded like you just said "Let Her Go," like
Let Her-
the Let Her Go.
the Let Her Go.
A, B, C, D, E, F, go.
Go. Yeah, the Let Her Go.
Let Her Go.
No, but like Passenger, who wrote the song Let Her Go.
Yeah.
I met him probably 6 or
I've
7
seen him
years
twice.
ago.
You made me a fan
Yeah.
of his, and I've seen him
Yeah,
twice
he's great.
live. He's fantastic.
I met him busking, when he was not doing anything, to just playing
Back
guitar
in the
on
good
street.
old days.
Back in the good old days. And I started chatting to him when he was just playing his guitar in the street, and he said, oh, if you buy my CD, you'll get a free ticket to my concert tonight. The concert was like 20, 30 people tops.
He's so good. Was
yeah.
he good then as he is now?
Oh, man, yeah. He was so good. I mean, he played just as good, if not better, because of the intimate setting,
I think he's better that. Oh, okay, so the first time I saw him, he was better than the second time.
Yeah.
I saw him the first time at the hotel
Cafe.
Cafe,
Yeah,
thank you.
great venue.
Second time I saw him in Central Park, and he was stuck to the stage. He had to stay on mic. When he was in the hotel cafe,
He could come off mic.
he came off the mic.
Yeah.
Did he do that with you?
Yeah.
I thought that was the most badass choice in the world. He was like, nah,
Kinda
fuck
breaks
it.
it
I'm
all
leaving the
down,
stage.
yeah.
I'm going to come sit in the middle of you guys like we're sitting on the beach, maybe
Yeah.
in Australia, and I'm just going to play my guitar, and we're going to
Yeah.
do a sing-along.
Yeah.
I was like, this dude
And
is the
he's so good, and he's captivating the audience. But then we took him out to beers. Like, we took him out to a pub after the show, like a group of
That's
friends.
so awesome.
And I remember specifically one guy brought him a beer and was like, "So Mike, what's your backup plan?" type of thing. Like,
fuck that guy.
Yeah, but like it was. I mean, it was a casual type of thing where it was like it wasn't like splat out. It was more like.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
he was busking.
Yeah,
okay,
so he
I
had
got
been
it.
busking
that's
all this
the
stuff.
artist
and,
in me that jumped out and got
yeah,
mean.
no, and trust me, I get it because I'm like, I'm all for, keep pursuing your dream. But he's kind of, it maybe it wasn't worded that way, but he was something like, so what happens like if this music thing doesn't work out?
Well, yeah,
'Cause
how long can you busk?
Yeah,
right?
like how long are you
can
going to be
really do
busking
this?
for? And Mike goes like, oh, I'm a musician. Like that was his answer. And the
That's
guy was
all I
like,
can do. That's
and
my
the guy was
passion.
like, but what if it doesn't pan out? And he's like, I'm going to keep playing music. And then I swear it was like a year later, he Let Her Go came.
Those people that make that decision of like, no, this is it. It's. I look, if I walk through Target and I see the book The Secret, I'm like, but I don't dismiss the idea that what we put out is what we get back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can probably feel this about me, I'm like 50-50 when it comes to all that. And I wish I was more like even 70-30, but like,
Yeah.
I'm definitely this 50% of me that is the worst kind of American, and there's another 50% of me that is like love of the universe and the cosmos, and like we are all one, and and I don't know if that's because half my life has been spent in California and the other half in Indiana, and that maybe the longer I'm in paradise, I'll think more utopic thoughts. I don't know, but there's a reason those people in Australia come when they do set their minds to it. They are successful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And I'm glad that Australia is finally moving past the Crocodile Dundee shit. That's got to stop. So with them, like, so social media, but we talked about the acting. So like, you guys didn't watch TV there. Like, it's not a thing to like go to the movies. Is that an American?
It's just not a thing to go to the movies because it's like at least $22.
So who goes to the movies there? Why if
we
they're
have
charging $22 there,
yeah.
they must be making $22 there. Somebody's going.
I mean, like, I probably went to the movies in the 5 years that I lived there 3 times.
Which ones did you choose?
It was usually when I was
If you
going
say
on a
Mamma
date.
Mia or something.
No, it was usually when I was going on a date.
Totally.
I honestly can't remember what movies I saw in the theaters.
Their law there is that you vote or you get a fine. Mm-hmm. I think this is it's either the second or third time I brought this up. I love that because if the fine, yes, it sucks to have to pay a fine, but the money you pay for not voting goes into programs like education, space exploration, Medicaid, Medicare, helping the people. If you do vote, which you should anyway, you're giving your voice to where the country should go as a team because we are all a team. I think voting is very important. I wish we were all a little less like, my country, and more like, hey, let's take care of the planet as a whole.
Yeah.
But the reality that we live in is like, take care of your country first and then figure it out.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, if that is the reality, which it is, we should vote. I dig that they have that. They have no guns.
Yeah.
No guns are allowed, right?
No guns.
Dig that. I don't know what their education or healthcare is. Are they...
I mean, again, I think every country has their thing. So their healthcare is pretty good, I have to admit.
But it's not like, is it like universal healthcare? Or is it like ours, like pay to play?
No, they have, from what I understand, and being not a permanent resident, I might be misquoting, but from what I understand, they have Medicare, which is everyone has it. It's your basic medical needs type of thing. And then you can pay for private health insurance, or your job can give you better health insurance. But Medicare will cover you in emergencies, will cover you for your GPs and things like that.
That's awesome.
But in terms of education, one thing I don't understand, and I don't know, I think you could maybe poke holes in everything, but is at 16, you can choose to drop out of school. I mean, I know you kind of can here, but it's almost like they give you the option. They're like, hey, now's your chance. If you want to go do a vocation, you can go do a vocation, which is cool.
You absolutely can here, and you can, and then here you can just take a test, get your GED, and then you can still go do a collegiate program.
Yeah, but that's
trade.
not even really. It's just different in Australia. I guess the way they do it is it's more of an option than it is here.
Gotcha.
So you find a larger percentage of people not finishing high school.
Oh wow, really? See, I don't like that.
Yeah, so that's where I'm like, I understand, because I'm all for like people who go into a trade. Like, we need those jobs, and we need people to do them. But just the way they're handling the education, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with someone finishing high school and then going into a trade.
Not at all.
Like, so I don't know.
I did poorly in school because I all I cared about was acting. But I'm still glad I had to sit through those history classes. I may not have done well on my tests, but I love history. And I still remember those things. I was still, even though like my report card, my label, right? Mm-hmm. My label was false. It doesn't mean I didn't learn it. I just didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
I just didn't care. But I did care about history. I just didn't care about the construct of my educational system of like, you must say this on a piece of paper for me on this date, or else it means you're stupid.
Yeah. I get that.
What the fuck? But like now I'm older. I'm like, just take the damn test.
Yeah, you want to shake people and be like, this is not the hardest thing you're going to encounter in your life.
It's not the hardest.
Just do
Back
it.
then I was like, oh my, this is torture. It's killing me. I'm gonna die. Now I'm like, dude, like if somebody handed me a test, I'm like, people go to trivia night. Do you know what that is? It's people going to take tests for fun.
For funsies.
I do this. I love this. I can't wait to do a trivia night. You know what else I pay for? Good money for? Escape rooms where they ask you stupid questions.
Puzzles.
Solve these puzzles. That's what school was. I was in an escape room for 13 years and didn't give a shit. Got out and I was like, all the money I'm working for, I want to give to do that. Just do the tests when you get them. But I also think, like, why do we make kids do it all if we're living longer? Right? Like, 60, 70 years ago, people weren't living to be as old as they are now. And the further we get along with people like yourself and
health and
other
all that fun stuff.
Healthcare folk, we're going to live longer. We don't need to force all of the education that a human being needs in the first 17 years of life. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying let your kids run rampant for 7 years and become animals.
Yeah.
But let's not force it so much. I feel like not now, maybe not even in 50 years, but in 100 years, all this is going to have to be reconstructed. This is all, everything is not up to code. Everything is outdated. Everything is getting to be comedically ridiculous to me. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's because I'm older, I'm so far away from it, or whatever it is, but it didn't work for me. I'm going to make it work because it's just something I care to do, but like as a kid, it didn't work. It was bonkers. And like no teacher pulled my mom aside and was like, I think he might have ADHD. I think he might. Mm-hmm. I think this kid's going to grow up to have a podcast if you don't step in.
Yeah. Oh, man. A podcast?
What is... My mom would still be, to this day, what is a podcast?
Is it contagious?
Yeah. Do I have podcasts? Are my other children susceptible to pot? What is the... Did you see weird bugs in Australia or anything crazy? What's the weirdest...
Yeah.
Did you see kangaroos?
Oh, yeah.
Totally, right?
Heaps, yeah.
What's the difference between a kangaroo and a wallaby? I can't remember that.
Size.
Size.
Wallabies are smaller.
Did you see any crazy spiders or snakes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
In your home?
Yes.
Do you have a story?
So it was like... Yeah, I was really new to Australia. I knew there was a bunch of scary creatures there, but hadn't encountered any yet. And so I'm washing dishes, and there's like, a window in front of me or whatever. I'm washing my dishes, and all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye, like the shadow just kind of jumps in front of me, and I look, and it's a spider, no joke. The body the size of the palm of my hand with these crazy long legs. It was
the tarantula
massive.
from Home Alone.
It was massive, and it was this giant black jumping spider, and I, freaked out, and so I jump back. It jumps on the floor. I grab a bowl and I put it on top, and it has like one. It was really common because there's like one leg sticking out of the bowl, kind of moving around.
I can't look at you while you tell this story.
And so I'm scooching the bowl along the floor to get to the back door of the house because I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. I was even scared that if I tried to kill it, it wouldn't die. So I was like, I just need to get this out of my house. And so the bowl is on the ground, and on the count of 3, I just throw the entire bowl and the spider out of the house. I broke the bowl because I was like, I don't care.
Fuck that bowl.
Find out later. It's a huntsman spider. They don't hurt people. They're not poisonous.
If it's then don't call it a huntsman spider.
Because it hunts smaller, dangerous spiders. So you actually want huntsman because it'll eat the redbacks.
Call it the spider killer. You don't call it the huntsman.
The
huntsman. Huntshuman. Yeah. That's a bad title for that. You don't call it that. You say
you should talk
spider
to them,
hunter.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah. Talk to the Australians.
And also say it's aluminum. And I kind of like when you said herb. Herb sounds like you're naming this.
This is Herb.
This is Herb. Say hi. Hi, Herb. Hi.
Yeah, that's one that I go back and forth between.
Speaking of Herb, how is the weed there?
Speaking of Herb, it's illegal.
It's illegal there?
Yeah.
Well, they need to wake up. How is it though? Is it good? Is it different?
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Is it better than our legal stuff? Or just
I mean, you can get everything. Weed. I mean, if you want to go into weed discussion, that depends on what you're looking for.
We're talking about homeopathic cures here. So it's illegal. Why is it illegal there? They seem like a smart country. It'd be good for their economy, no?
It's kind of like most countries, because there's still all these grandfathered in things where it's like when we were on this war on drugs, like we even as the world was kind of on this war on drugs, trying to it was a high class drug, marijuana was, and
But now you see it. It's now that it's
So
legal. It's helping
it's,
economies.
I think
in
it's
Colorado,
technically
California.
maybe slowly decriminalized. I think the most recently in Western Australia was
People are
decriminalized,
chilling out.
where meaning, there's still restrictions regarding the law. I think if you're caught with weed in Australia, you might have to go to some form of like probation or something like that, but it's
Sure.
not. You're not thrown in jail
not
for
a
it.
huge deal.
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, it used to be illegal to even have marijuana at all in Nevada, Vegas, and now it's legal there, legal in Colorado, legal here. A few other places I can't remember off the top of my head, but those economies have seen just nothing but positivity. Like, it's good for the economy. If you treat it from a law perspective, no differently than you treat alcohol.
It's 100%.
If you regulate it,
the thing is,
FDA.
like I actually wrote a thesis paper on why there should be decriminalization of drugs. Like if you want to get
Did
real
you
into
write it on just a bunch of zigzags taped together? Is that what you, or
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a bunch of just weed papers?
Yeah.
I wrote a weed paper on weed paper.
Yeah, exactly. But I was talking about all drugs and how different countries have handled drug laws and stuff like that. But basically, if you want to like call a drug, alcohol and caffeine are drugs
Totally,
too.
absolutely.
And we're highly addicted to caffeine.
Absolutely.
And alcohol is a leading cause of death in the U.S. in terms of like one, overdosing, but two, like accidents that happen caused by
during
alcohol. Yeah.
During consumption.
Yeah, so whether that's driving, whether that's other accidents, things like that. So if you want to talk about legalizing weed, I don't think it's no matter what you think about weed, it's definitely no more dangerous than alcohol or caffeine are. In fact, I think it's less so, but that's a different topic of debate. But for sure, it should not be the same class of drugs as opioids and things like that. And I have different opinions on opioids as well.
Totally. Well, the same thing. Like I've never personally done anything outside of weed or alcohol, and I'm definitely like fine with it being legal. Mm-hmm. Cocaine, crack, heroin, meth, nope. Like, get the fuck out of here. Even with ecstasy, like, I'd be like, no. Now, if you're talking, like, shrooms or something,
So then why do you think that's different?
I don't know. That's my point. Mm-hmm. That's exactly why I brought it up. I don't know. I think it's because shrooms is, like, happen naturally. Like, that's
But so do super poisonous mushrooms, and they kill us. You know what I mean?
All mushrooms, me. All mushrooms
will
kill
kill
me.
you. We always have to put a disclaimer. Sorry, Stephen, we're eating mushrooms tonight.
God. So,
don't eat this. It's mushrooms.
I don't even know if my listeners know that. I'm allergic to mushrooms. Mushrooms is in so much shit. Veggie burgers, truffles, truffle oil on French fries,
pizza, whatever.
Anything having to do with something fancy is mushroom, and I'm like, oh, I can't have it. Great, good. So any dinner I go to with the Bouknight family, who all of them love mushrooms,
because they're awesome,
they have to order me special like kid-sized plates with a spork.
But I also like how we've just come to the point where it's like, oh, and we're gonna have this. Stephen, don't eat this. It has mushrooms. Like every family gathering.
I'm gonna be like 65 in the family for 40 years, and you guys are gonna be like, don't eat this. Like, I know I told you I'm allergic. Okay, so back to the mushroom thing. I don't know why I think that. Well, first of all, I know I have a sensitivity to certain drugs based upon things that happened in my childhood. Mm-hmm. So I know that. Mushrooms, and I'm talking about like chew them up, see some crazy shit. I think there's in the art community, like, if you try mushrooms, it'll expand your mind.
Like LSD and stuff.
And right, well, and I'm not opposed to that either. I don't think any of them. Let me go back, because I don't think either of those should be legal. But I would try those. Mm-hmm. I would try acid. I would try mushrooms. Not that I'm telling any listeners to do that, but I personally would try them. I don't know why I have a different attitude towards those.
So
especially like LSD is totally chemical, like meth is, or like crack is. It's all chemical.
So there's a ton of research, and if honestly, if you ever want to go deep into like thoughts on drugs, I'm all about that. coming from a public health perspective, I think there should be some consideration into how we handle legalization / decriminalization / all the stuff of drugs. And also making something decriminalized doesn't mean it's legal. So it just means people aren't going to be put in jail. And one of the biggest factors in this is actually economical, because if we are depleting our justice system resources to get these people who are one-offs using heroin, using coke, using whatever, and we're not actually focusing our efforts on how the drugs are getting into the U.S. where they're being manufactured, big things.
So smart.
It's a depletion of that system. So by decriminalizing it, you're not putting in the justice system, you're putting the impact on the mental health system. So you're getting them into rehab, or you're getting them into clinics or things like that. Mm-hmm. Another big component is with specifically heroin. So they use methadone to get heroin addicts off of heroin, and methadone is extremely bad. It's just as bad for you as heroin. Methadone is.
Absolutely.
So that being said, why is that a legal prescription? Why can't they just be in an office using heroin to slowly decrease their heroin intake in a controlled environment? It's actually proven to be a lot safer in a lot of instances than putting them on methadone. But because it's such a high-class drug, that's not a viable option right now. So it would have to, something would have to change in the classification of heroin for that to be an accessible thing.
Do you think that's a possibility?
I think it should be. I think it should be on the table.
I think, look how everything has changed, though.
Yeah.
With just sticking with marijuana, right? Just sticking with weed. Look how much that has evolved and changed.
Yeah.
Shit's been around forever. I don't know who the first person that was like, see that weird plant? Let's smoke that shit.
Yeah.
It had to be like a wildfire, and they were like, I am so fucked up
this
from that wildfire.
This is great.
This shit is great. Let's smoke that on the regular. Like, totally. Some chemist came up with meth and shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's different.
But I guess the other thing is, so now it's created, so what do we do about the problem?
Totally.
We can't go back in time and not create it. So the things that we also have to start looking at the actual problem. It's not the drug itself, it's the consumption and ultimately death or crime that it's leading to, right?
And both in heaps, right?
Yeah. So when you're looking at that, what some countries have done in decriminalizing all drugs is they're doing it for educational purposes. So let's say ecstasy is decriminalized somewhere. So
MDMA, Molly, for you street folk.
So you're not going to be thrown in jail if you're caught with it. But there's a lot of education outside of nightclubs saying don't mix caffeine and alcohol and MDMA. And they talk about why, and they talk about how that affects
So I should never have it then.
Yeah, so it's like it's a really big education push, and actually they've found a really big decrease in overdosing of basically mixing these toxins together, and in kind of responsible use. Or there's a lot of things. The other big thing is regulating the actual substance. So when you buy off the street, you don't know if you're getting coke, if you're getting flour, if you're getting baby powder.
Well, you do know, because if you do the thing from the movies where you always have a switchblade knife in your pocket and you stab it and then you taste the knife.
Yeah.
Then you know if it's real or
well,
not.
Then I'm talking about the people who don't carry switchblade knives to test their coke on the street.
Not everybody is El Chapo. Not everyone is.
But like pills, whatever, you don't know what it is. So they've done, set up places outside of music festivals saying, do you want to get your drugs tested to see what you're actually taking? No
Holy
ramifications.
Shit.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, so you can look it up. There's videos on it and stuff, and it shows the percentage of actual drug that's in the pill that they bought, and it's coming.
As opposed to just random chemicals.
Yeah, and so they're saying like, look, you're not going to get arrested. This is nothing. This is to show you what you're actually buying. And so like some of them were coming up like 10% MDMA, and the rest was like baby powder or like whatever it was. And some of them are actually like toxic chemicals. Like there could be chlorine be chlorine and bleach in some of these. So it's like in terms of decriminalizing it, now you're actually opening it. So if someone's getting the drug, at least I know this sounds dumb, but at least they're actually getting what it is instead of something that can cause a really severe reaction.
Well, yeah, totally. Every time you take that's probably my main fear, actually, outside of say the effect of what ecstasy actually does to your brain. Right, the damage and also
with,
the high
your
you
dopamine
get.
receptors
Totally.
and things like that. Yeah.
But more so is like, the I got a guy sentence is my. I don't fuck with that sentence. I don't like that. I got a guy. I don't know your guy.
Yeah.
I'm not buying from him. I'm not going to buy that shit from somebody that I don't know. It's like, that I have that fear more than anything. So every time people are taking a drug, they're not only swallowing the drug, they're swallowing their fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being fine with it. And I can't do that personally. You show me a green plant that I can smell and I can feel and I can break it apart with my fingers and know, okay, I know what this is.
Mm-hmm.
My senses, I'm using all of the senses that I have that tell me this is what you've had. Whether they've sprinkled, the thing used to be like, sprinkled with angel dust or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
That's why I like that, like, the FDA is now taking control over legalized weed and, like, stepping in and saying, let's see what you got before you sell it to people. FDA, stamp approved. I love that. I think that's great. Like, getting away from, like, the street drugs of all the bullshit that goes on is a great thing. And I'm not going to put too much of myself out there, but I'll just say I know from experience is all I'll say. And it's not good. I like the legalization because that means that we're using government for the right reasons instead of the reasons of just taking away freedoms or whatever. We're using it as like, hey, help us out, take care of this.
Yeah.
To be a public service.
But
and I dig that.
and the other pro of legalization or decriminalization means research can be done.
Yeah.
So,
there you go. That's another good one.
So, like, specifically with, like cannabis, there's all this research being poured into CBD, which, first of all, like, CBD oil is great and CBD oil is awesome, but there's so many aspects to that plant. It's just like taking the curcumin out of turmeric. You can take the CBD oil out of cannabis, but there's still so many other components to it, and we don't know how, we don't know how that reacts long-term outside of its natural form.
Caveman shit. We don't know how a plant works yet.
Yeah.
Stop saying we're in the future. We don't even know how a plant works yet totally because we haven't tested it properly. That is great.
So it's like, I'm all for this, like, thing. First of all, I don't think there's any miracle cure for anything. Like,
totally.
Turmeric and CBD, they're all great things, or like, whatever it is. Good things are coming out of things being researched, but that being said, there's still just not enough research being done. But when things get legalized or decriminalized, research is able to start happening, and that's why you see so much coming out about it right now. So that's cool.
I agree. We've been going for 2 hours, so I'm not going to take too much more of your time. Yeah. I started out with 8 questions. The more you spoke, I just kept writing down questions because this is just...
It's been fun.
It's awesome. You're great. Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go through some rapid fire stuff.
For sure. And
then we're going to end with talking about your new baby.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, favorite movies. Just give me a few of them. What do you love?
I Am Sam.
No, you're Taylor.
Good one.
It's very quick. I Am Sam. That's a good one. Sean Penn.
Yeah, I don't know why. That was one of the first movies that made me cry. And
do you cry in normal life? Are you a crier?
I didn't used to be. So, like, growing up, I've broken bones and not cried. And then I don't know if I've just become more in touch with my emotions or something. But yeah, I know it is. I joke about it, but I've definitely been more open about it. So now I cry during movies. But that was, like, the first movie I distinctly remember making me cry.
I know this is being released after, but do you think you're going to cry at the wedding? You're going to cry? I'm
going to cry. I practice my speech and I cry.
Awesome. I cannot wait to hear that speech, by the way.
You gave me an hour, right, to do the speech?
Yeah, full hour. Good. A tight hour, though. It's got to be tight. It's got to be solid.
Hour 5?
I can do it.
Okay,
is it an encore 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm accounting for about a minute of, standing ovation.
Great. Got it. We can make that happen. So I Am Sam. What else do you like?
Monsters, Inc.
Yeah, if someone was like, I hate that movie Monsters, Inc., be like, get out.
It's so good.
You don't get to be part of this.
That's probably one of my favorite Disney Pixars. And one iconic one, I don't know if it's a favorite movie, but Batman Returns. I was the Penguin for Halloween one year.
I thought about bringing this up on the podcast, and I didn't because I had 8 million other more important questions to ask you. So this is legendary in your family history that you dressed up as the Penguin and people didn't...
Danny DeVito, yeah.
Danny DeVito's Penguin. A young Taylor dressed up as Danny DeVito's Penguin, and no one recognized you, right?
Yeah, I went to school. And also, that was,
How did they let... No school would let you in like that anymore. That's
No,
not a thing.
I was stuffed and also, junior high is that awkward phase where you're trying to figure out if you're cool or like what group you're into,
You figured it out that day.
I was not a cool kid if you haven't guessed. No, but like,
you as the penguin walking up to somebody going, "Hey, red meat's bad for you," is the funniest shit that I could think of.
and the best part was I had like a little blood dribble coming down because he bites off the guy's nose.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And like so that was the even thing. I carried around an umbrella, which it was just one of those. I loved my costume that year,
That's
and
a great
I was
costume.
so proud.
Do you
of
think
it.
you'll ever do it again? You should just do it. I think
I would
feel like
totally do it again.
If you did it again, it would be even more epic because when you did it, it was still in the zeitgeist, sort of.
Yeah.
But now it's so retro. They'd be like, "Holy hell, that woman is dressed as Penguin from 1992 Batman."
I would totally do it again, but it's just so funny because even now I'm like, what was 8th grade Taylor thinking? Like everyone's dressing up as like slutty nurses
I know, but I
and
love
whatever,
it. I think
and
it's
I was
great.
like, the Penguin, but I loved it. It was one of my favorite costumes.
Amazing. I love Batman Returns. Michael Keaton's my favorite Batman.
Also, Catwoman in that, great,
I mean, yeah, pretty great. You're a theater person.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have favorite plays or musicals? It can be both. Just a couple.
Yeah, I mean, right now I think it's maybe cliche to say, but I love Hamilton.
That's something that we've definitely bonded over.
Oh,
I haven't
man.
talked about Hamilton on the podcast yet. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
I'm a history nerd, and when that came out, it was like it gave me everything I love. I grew up loving hip hop. I still do. Lin-Manuel's music is crazy good.
Yeah, I loved him from
and then it was
Heights,
history on
yeah.
top of that. It's a history lesson for kids. I know there's explicit tracks and they talk about adult themes. I don't care. Show it to kids.
Yeah.
I think there's an edited version. Show them that.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's so good, and for a number of reasons. I mean, I love the genre of music. I wouldn't say I was like a big hip-hop rapper fan, but I do.
Well, you were busy with Warped Tour.
Yeah, exactly. I was a
you
punk
had enough
rocker.
culture
Yeah.
on your plate. Yeah.
But I do really like that music, and now I really enjoy that music. But when I was not the best history student, I was great in math, science, English. All those were my subjects. History, and it wasn't that I didn't like it. I had a really hard time remembering names and dates. Like
It's hard.
it was just not my thing.
Yeah.
And so when Hamilton, so then like flash forward, Hamilton comes about, I'm like, I know every single lyric of, Hamilton.
And that's the best way to remember things. Like, for instance, there was the Federalist Papers. Mm-hmm. Do you remember how many Hamilton wrote? He wrote the other 51. The fact that we know that he wrote 51 of the Federalist Papers is crazy.
Yeah.
But we know that historic fact based upon the idea that this guy wrote this musical that was just supposed to be a little off-Broadway thing that was supposed to die and captured everything.
But yeah, I mean, it's great music. And then from that, I've actually used his beats and like timing and syncopation to memorize other things for tests. So
No way.
I've written my own lyrics over it for tests because like now that I have them so well like stuck in my memory, I'm like, this is my new study tool, honestly.
Awesome.
I'll write the raps over it with, anatomy and physiology or whatever, just so that way I can like...
Well, pay attention, students, because that's a great idea. What are your favorite songs?
From that?
Mm-hmm.
I love the cabinet battles, and I'll be in the car, and no joke, I'll be doing both sides.
Yeah. It's
and
so good.
Washington on Your Side. I don't know why.
Washington. I don't
you know
have
why?
words for that, but
Okay.
It's so good.
So this is the
be
best
nice.
soundtrack to run to, especially that song because it gets to the part where it's like, oh, yeah. And the best part is just like the Southern motherfucker,
Yeah.
Democratic Republic, and you're just
Sprinting,
like, yeah,
just
and no joke,
sprinting.
I sprint every time because I'm like so just in the zone.
Wait for It's brilliant.
Yeah.
That song is so beautiful because
The lyrics are beautiful.
But my favorite is the end of Act 1, and I feel like a bad fan because I can't remember the name of it. But it's everyone is turning to Alexander Hamilton and asking him for something, and he needs to it's giving me chills just even thinking about it. He needs to think about his work, and that means so much to me because someone who is so focused, in order to do something that's important to you, you have to sacrifice things. So he's sacrificing his relationships with his family, sacrificing his relationships with people that should be his friends that eventually become enemies. which I relate to because that's literally happened to me. I don't know. I don't know how... I mean, all the information's there, and I've listened to that book. Not Isaac. I'm forgetting the author of the book. Ron Chernow. I've listened to Ron Chernow's book. Could not read that thing because it's so much information. I need to some books I just can't read.
Yeah.
And I love to listen to history. I can do that. Like now I'm on to, not Oscar Isaac, that's the actor. Isaac, anyway, I'm listening to his book on Da Vinci right now. I love listening to history. If it's fiction, I have to read it because I need to be the one directing the movie.
Yeah.
If it's...
yeah, when you're listening to a voice in fiction, you assign different things to it, you know? I like reading.
Yeah. Well, but fiction I can't listen to on somebody else read it because they're making too many decisions for me.
Yeah.
Based on their inflection. But anyway, Wait For It's great. But that final song, I'm telling you, because at some point Burr says... How do you write like you're running out of time?
Yeah.
Like you're running out of time. Are you running out of time? Like he's actually asking him, like, do you know have you figured out what your fate is already? Do you already, how are you doing all this? Have you figured out the world? Which means that Hamilton was such a freak with his work ethic that this man, Burr, thought he must have been immortal. And he did that in 3 sentences.
Yeah.
3 questions. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people that still haven't heard it, which is nonsense. I wish I would have seen the original cast, though. Oh, my God.
Man, yeah. But, I mean, honestly, I think every cast that is doing it has just... I've heard amazing things about every tour, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to play King George. That'd be cool.
That'd be a fun role.
If anyone wants to cast me. So you love Hamilton. What else do you like?
What else have I seen? I mean, I saw Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth in Wicked, and that was awesome.
Shannon was talking about that. That was it's interesting, too, that those are the 2 musicals that have, in our time, it's what Oklahoma must have felt like back in the day or whatever, the classics are. Yeah, these are still going to be done. Wicked will be done. Rent will be done.
Yeah.
30 years from now. It's kind of crazy. Okay, cool. I'm going to save that one because we're going to talk about your baby. So my favorite show as a kid was Inside the Actors Studio. And on Inside the Actors Studio, they used to do this questionnaire it was by this journalist named Bernard Pivot, called the Pivot Questionnaire. And did you ever watch that show, Inside the Actors Studio? So at the end of every Actors Studio, so I stole this. I love to do it because it's fun. So it's 10 questions, rapid fire. Just say the first thing that comes to your mind. And we're going to do it.
Okay.
What's your favorite word?
Oh, man. Promiscuous.
Wow. All right. See, I learned a lot about you from that. Alrighty.
I'm sorry, but that's where my mind went. I was like, what's a fun one to say?
It's on record now. What's your least favorite word?
Lethargic.
Oh, good one. What turns you on creative, spiritually, or emotionally? What's your biggest turn on?
I guess adventure or newness. So it could be a new environment, new people, things like that.
I love that. What turns you off?
Stagnancy.
Favorite curse word?
Shit.
That's 2 in a row with shit. Interesting. Most of it's been fuck.
I like shit. I think I...
How do you like to use it the best? Is it
it's
when
the
you...
shit.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the shit.
Got it. Not shit. I gotta go to work. Shit. What sound or noise do you love? Oh, was that it? What sound or noise do you hate?
I hate... okay, there's 2. One is I hate when... I don't mind clinking on plates, but when you get the knife that goes...
fork and the knife, and they scratch each other?
One, and the magic eraser. Have you ever used a magic eraser? There's something...
there's
something about it. It's very subtle, but
it's not
terrible.
as bad as nails on a chalkboard, but it's it wasn't... It's because you don't... When you look at it, it's not supposed to sound like that. Or if a dry erase marker hits the wrong way. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a good one for you. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I've dreamt of so many. One was like working in as like an editor in a book publishing company.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, that or maybe music, like actually attempting.
Gotcha.
Music on some level.
It's not too late. You can still make stuff. What profession would you not like to do?
Like accounting or.
That is like the number one answer I hear all the time.
Yeah, I just kind of.
I know a lot of accountants too. They're just so offended. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You made a lot of people smile.
That's a good one. And that is the Bernard Pivot questionnaire. Cool. So I got you for a couple more minutes. I'm going to ask you about... there were certain things about, like, nutrition I didn't get to. I wanted to talk to you about, composting, preservation, going green.
Well, down the line, if you ever want to do it again.
We'll just do it again.
Yeah.
So you and I once had a great talk about, like, inner city diets. That's another one. We didn't really describe what the blood type diet actually was. Can you give a quick thing on that, and then we'll go to your new baby?
Yeah,
What is that exactly?
The idea behind the blood type diet is that blood types can kind of give a glimpse into our genetic history and how we digest or absorb nutrients. So basically, the oldest blood type is O, and then came, A, B, and AB. And then, like, positive and negative is a different thing. But basically, the blood type diet says that there's specific foods or different ways of digesting. Like, O's should have higher protein diets, and A's tend to be more of the vegetarians, I think, and B's tend to be more of, like, no red meat, but, like chicken and turkey metabolizes really well. And then...
Do you hold this as being, like... Is this factual, or is this just, like, theory?
So, there are studies quoted in the book, and when I was working at the wellness center, it was what was kind of prescribed. That was what was generally, taught was the blood type diet. And I've seen a lot of people have a lot of really good outcomes using the blood type diet. Now, I haven't, because I've been so diverse in my studies, I haven't delved into whether or not, like, how much that has actually been studied. I mean, I'd like to at some point, but what I can say is essentially it kind of becomes an elimination diet, which isn't the worst thing in the world if you're dealing... That's
how I'm going about things, is like, just, let me eliminate this. Let me try getting rid of this for a little while and see how I feel.
So that's kind of how, if I think it's a great starting ground, that if you prescribe to the blood type diet, start it as... You're basically eliminating a lot of things that probably wouldn't digest well with you anyway, and then you can kind of start to add them back in one by one and see what your actual culprits are.
Absolutely, because for me, I'll be honest with you, I didn't buy the gluten-free thing, but as soon as I dropped it out, my face cleared up, I stopped bloating as much, my stomach was better, I'll just be appropriate and say that. I dropped red meat, and again, things got better. Dairy, getting rid of dairy made me feel a lot better. My sinuses cleared up. My voice changed and became clearer, and as an actor, that's very important for me. Again, my face was clearing up from that. All that's very important, but it was all about, like you said, experimenting with eliminating things.
Yeah.
Types of foods that may be triggers, because there are those few things that are the main triggers. Like outside of the puppy kid with the broccoli, most people should eat the broccoli, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're the one that told, I remember very well, like, you're like, yeah, like, no harm in eating a green every day, something green every day, that's a good thing.
I'm all about eating the rainbow. My philosophy now just comes down to balance, is one, finding what makes you feel good, both, physically and mentally, emotionally. If you're so obsessed about eating only 100% pure organic, I think that could be more detrimental than just eating a cookie every now and again. But also...
Speaking of cookies, I love those protein cookies. They're so good. Have you ever had those?
No.
I'm going to buy them for you. You're going to hate them.
Great.
But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I just come back to balance, where I'm like, look, I drink alcohol.
What?
I'm sorry. They stripped me of my nutritionist license. Like, yeah, no, she can't speak anymore. Yeah, like, I come down to balance. Like, I will still eat pasta and pizza, but that being said, if you looked at my average daily diet, it's extremely healthy. And like I said, it varies based on my activity level. It varies based on my hormonal level. Eat what makes you feel good. If you have questions, talk to people who know their shit.
Yeah.
There's my favorite word.
There it is.
Talk to people who know their shit. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions, or don't be afraid to ask where to get your sources from, because, like I said, Pinterest articles are not a solid scientific form of evidence for me.
What about Wikipedia?
That's better. Please don't. No, it's not. I take it back.
I was saying this the other day. I wonder if kids, when I was in school 8 million years ago, I wasn't allowed to use Wikipedia for papers. I think that's probably had to have changed by now, because even though people can change it, generally
it's pretty,
stuff on there is pretty good.
Yeah, it is. I'm fairly certain, at least at the college level, you cannot use Wikipedia for a source.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But like middle school, let the kids use Wikipedia. Cool. We talked about that. Great. So, okay, now we've gotten to the fun part. What else are you up to?
Oh, well, I have this, I found a friend, well, didn't find a friend, anyways, we both have a love of books and alcohol,
Yeah.
and so we've started a podcast.
You and who?
Felice. Yes.
I feel like I might have known this person for a while, so here's what happened. I'm going to say from my perspective and why I'm such a big supporter and fan of this. Not just because I love you both, which I do.
Thank you.
I met you both through Shannon. Felice is one of Shannon's longtime friends, and you are one of her longtime sisters. Mm-hmm. And
I knew you were going to say that.
And so you knew her through Shannon, right? But like, Felice is such a gregarious, smart, funny, sweet person. If anyone met Felice and didn't like them, I wouldn't trust them. Mm-hmm. Like, Felice is, to me, I hold her where I hold you. Like, you two are people I hold very dear to myself. So you two just love books and have inspired me to read more. You guys are on Goodreads all the time. Got me to do a Goodreads profile. Realize, like, oh, I have some gaps in my reading for sure. And so you two also love podcasts. You love to have a cocktail every now and again. She is a professional in the academic world. Mm-hmm. You are a professional in the nutrition world, and both great amateur cocktail enthusiasts.
Yep.
Who love books of all kinds. So you started a podcast.
Yes.
What's it called?
Drunk Poet Society.
Where can people find that?
You can find us on SoundCloud and your Apple iTunes app.
That little purple app on your phone that you don't know how it works yet. That's the thing, is like, I'm doing this podcast, you're doing your podcast, and I love it. We're both doing it, and we can cross-pollinate. So many people don't know about podcasts yet. It's kind of infuriating. It's like, guys, they're fun.
They're great.
I listen to so many. What are your favorite podcasts?
Oh, man.
Just 5. I know you're like me, where you could be like, I literally have 35 shows I'm subscribed to.
So at the moment, I love Ologies. It's a great show.
Tell me about it.
Allie Ward hosts it, and it's she goes into different. So every episode is a different interview with an ologist of some sort. So it could be, but cool ones.
Ecologist, biologist, ophthalmologist,
thanatologist, which is the study of death. Or there's a conservation technologist, was one of her most recent episodes. Super cool. Not horticulturist.
What about astrophysicists? No astrophysicists?
Not yet, but I'm sure it's on the radar. But I mean, like, she talks to everyone. Oceologist.
What does ology mean?
Study of.
Oh. Astrophysiology. Got it. There we go. Hi, Stephen. Welcome to the game.
So, Ology is great. I highly recommend it. And then she actually interviewed two epidemiologists who
How come it's astrophysicist and astrophysiologist?
There's different.
That's stupid.
I'm sure we're going into Latin or something at this point.
It's got to be. Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
But she interviewed two epidemiologists who have a podcast called This Podcast Will Kill You. And so they're really fun.
Got it.
And so and they do different like large-scale diseases like pandemics, epidemics, things like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so they're really good. And they also have
You are a science nerd.
I am a
love
science
it.
nerd. And they have quarantinis, so they come up with a quarantini for every episode, which kind of like resonated with me too. So they like sit down and make themselves a cocktail.
I love that. See, okay, and that's how this show started. I was
Yeah.
doing cocktails, and then I mostly have to record in the daytime with actors because that's when they're free.
Yeah.
And so that kind of just went to the wayside because no one wants to do day drinking before they go do a...
Well, you know what? They have to get
Yeah.
over it because Felice and I one time recorded at 10 a.m. and we made a cocktail.
And then
so...
she went and taught school.
Yeah, and then she went and taught
Hey, today's a Bill Nye Science Guy day. Fuck it.
Magic school bus.
Magic school bus. Miss... Hold on. I got this. Frizzle.
Nailed it.
Got it. I love that show.
What are some of your favorite podcasts right now?
Well, Up and Vanish just came back. Me and
I
Shannon
haven't
are
started
both
season
true
2 yet,
crime
yeah.
like freaks. We like the morbid. We do. We like the. I think
Yeah.
it's starting to get weird to me how much we like the morbid. Like my office is entirely haunted mansion, which is just like ghosts and shit. It's like Halloween year round. I'm like, I look like your average, everyday boy next door white guy, but there's like so many different sides of me that I hide from the world that I just expose in my apartment of like, was I supposed to be like a punk rock or goth guy? Was I supposed to be a hip hop head? Was I supposed to love high art? Was I supposed to be a astrophysiologist? I'm changing that
Physiologist.
shit. It's physiologist, people. Hear that, Neil deGrasse Tyson? What else do I like? I mean, look, I like Drunk Poets Society.
Oh, thank you. I
I
really
love
like
that
Hollywood
show.
Happy Hour.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Well, Star Talk with Neil deGrasse
Yeah.
Tyson, obviously. NPR Politics. Mm-hmm. Stuff You Should Know.
Yeah, that's a good one. Standard.
And then, I'm not going to count these three fellers. I'm just going to give them extra. Obviously, Marin's podcast, WTF. Armchair Expert with Dax. And then I like Joe Rogan's, and I like Pete Holmes. You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes. I like those. I like things. I used to, listen to a lot of the acting things, but now I'm starting to like let myself relax from the acting and branch out. I want to hear that Ology.
Ologies is great, and
That
I mean,
sounds cool.
and it's cool because like it's kind of like I listen to every episode because I just love Allie Ward as a host. She makes it super interesting, but it's kind of like how stuff works where you can kind of pick and choose what interests you. You don't have to listen to every single episode. It's not like a story that you have to follow.
I always feel so guilty when I delete an episode.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Not
Though.
interested.
Okay. So this is the other podcast. I didn't binge because I had to listen to it every week. And the last episode is coming out this coming week. It's called Dr. Death. And it is very scary because it's essentially following this guy who is a certified board MD, graduated, was doing neurosurgery, but like just fucking shit up in people. Like he was leaving stuff inside of them. He was destroying their spines and stuff. And so right now, kind of the question is, was he doing it on purpose or was he doing it just because he was a bad surgeon type of thing?
I don't know. Yeah,
and it's
who
very
knows?
scary.
That is scary. That's terrifying.
But I'm addicted and I have to know how it ends.
Dr. Death?
Dr. Death.
Did you listen to what was one? Dr. John or what? Dirty John.
Dirty John.
That was a good one.
Well, it's from the same podcast network.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
there you go. So I'm going to love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to your thing. So what Drunk Poets Society is, give me the elevator pitch. What is it?
So we wanted to make a book club that could kind of be inclusive for everyone, that was, based in like the social media sphere, and also incorporate our, like our love of reading with our like fun mixture of like cocktails and stuff like that. And we're both avid readers, so we're reading all the time, but we're releasing our schedule right now is like one podcast every 2 weeks. So that way, if people are reading along, that gives them time to read the book, listen to the podcast type of thing.
Yeah.
That, depending on responses, of course, that schedule might change, whether it becomes weekly or further out, whatever. But we also wanted to push ourselves out of the regular boundaries of what we typically read. So if I'm reading nonfiction, it tends to be, nutrition related in some aspect or health related. And if I'm reading fiction, it ranges widely. But we wanted to, take suggestions from people and read books that we may not have picked up before and discuss
suggest
them.
books. If you like a book, or if you ever wanted to read a book and you haven't gotten yourself to do it, suggest it, and then listen to it on the podcast.
And we might not like every book, and that's fine too. You know,
Right.
we want to, and we're not discussing it with any kind of specific viewpoint or whatever. We're just reading.
Bipartisan relationship to the book.
Yeah, we're just reading it and giving our honest opinions and giving a fun cocktail to go with it. And
so each episode has a specialized cocktail depending on what book it is. So the episode that came out today was, well, not today as of this podcast, but your second episode, let's say, was Reincarnation Blues.
Yeah.
Which is about, what is that book? I don't even know what that is.
So the elevator pitch of that is basically, it takes the idea of reincarnation. If there's 10,000 lives, you get 10,000 lives to reach nirvana. You can reach it before that, like you could reach it on life 2 or 3, but basically you have 10,000 chances to, become one with the universe.
So it's anti-YOLO.
Yeah. And our protagonist Milo is on his 9,992nd life, and so this book is taking place where everyone's like, "Come on, dude, you have to get this right.
Your shit together.
Yeah, you have to get this right by this point." So it goes through all of his lives. It's cool. It's a non-linear book, so it's jumping around from future to past, and we really had fun discussing this one, and we we're kind of rushed this day, so we kind of did a cop-out, but we chose a beer to accompany this book, but it's called Great White Beer from Lost Breweries. It's a local beer for Californians, and it was really nice, actually.
What was the connection?
So there was the first chapters about Milo and this shark, and
there you go.
And the shark is on the top of the beer. So,
got it, okay.
Yeah.
But, so you're going to continue recording. Are you having any guests on?
Oh, well, funny you should ask. Actually, coming up in our episode, we'll be discussing The Handmaid's Tale, and Stephen Bailey will actually be our guest.
Shit.
Yes.
I'll be honest with you. You already know this. I'll be honest with everybody else. I'm not a big fiction reader. I love nonfiction. I I think I put so much pressure on myself to know as much about our life as we are living in it, that I always get down on myself about reading anything fictional or even watching anything fictional even anymore. I put a lot of pressure on myself always. And but it's been cool for me to crack this book open and get lost in something and see certain allegories that have to do with
modern day,
our real life, and not just modern day, but just the world that we actually live in, to where it's got non-fictional sort of thought experiments. That's what the book really is to me so far, is a thought experiment, and I'm really digging it. I can't wait to be on it.
I loved Handmaid's Tale. I've already finished it.
I'll get there. I got a honeymoon to read it.
Yeah, it's a great book, but I think the thing I like about fiction is, one, how you can draw these parallels to your own life. I think it invokes a different part of our brain to take a story and relate it to reality, as opposed to just being fed facts,
Mm-hmm.
And reading and watching nonfiction is so important because that's how we grow and learn and research. But I think, one, it's not a bad thing to have some form of escapism, whether that's playing music, whether that's watching a movie or reading a fiction book. But also, I think it helps us take a different perspective on life, because you remember stories sometimes more than you remember facts.
Well, we're naturally storytellers.
Yeah.
Look at the most printed book in the world is the Bible. That was told.
It's all stories,
verbally.
yeah.
It's just stories.
It's all stories.
It's just stories passed down, and we're naturally storytellers.
Yeah.
We learn by telling stories. I don't just say, hey, there's a hole over there, don't fall in it. I say, I was walking over there, and I felt something crack beneath my feet, and I looked down, and there's a giant hole I almost fell in. If I'd have fallen in there, I'd have died instantly. You're not going to fall in because I told you the story, but if I say there's a hole over there, don't fall, you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean as much. We're storytellers naturally.
Yeah.
In Egyptian times, everyone thinks Egyptians just wrote in hieroglyphics only. No. That was a different thing. They had two different writing forms. Hieroglyphics were higher, not higher art, but written for almost godly writing. Mm-hmm. I don't know the right way to say that exactly.
If you're interested in hieroglyphics, you should listen to Egyptology on Ologies.
Yes, go to Ologies. We better get a shout out from them for all this plugging. But anyway, storytelling is so important, and I hope people think that, because I'm a storyteller by trade. So Anyway, your podcast is super duper funsies, and what are the next? So, Handmaid's Tale, Reincarnation Blues. What are the next few to look forward to?
Reincarnation Blues. Then I believe it's Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Then Lamb by Christopher Moore, which is one of my favorite authors. He's hilarious. So speaking of the Bible, like if you want to hear about Jesus Christ's childhood best friend Biff and their escapades, great book.
And Biff is a representation of. Is it just completely made up, or is it just like...
No, Biff is a fictional character put into this,
fictional.
put into these stories.
But not to be represented as one of the disciples?
No.
Okay, cool.
No, he's writing his own gospel.
I have it on my... So you're the reason I got the electronic Los Angeles library card.
Yes, big advocate of that.
Oh my God. I have been loving it so much. Because I was buying audiobooks.
Same.
And I was buying... I have so many books upstairs that I don't have any more. I literally... am stacking books in front of books on my bookshelf, and now I just have everything on my phone. I don't really like to read books on my phone. It's really hard for me. I like physical copies. But as far as audiobooks, it's been awesome. Free audiobooks.
For sure. It's
you
the
have
bomb.
21 days to listen to it?
Yeah.
It's the shit.
It's the shit. And as like a book lover, I love physical copies of books, but also the minimalist and environmentalist in me loves the fact that I can get all these, and it's free because it's an e-library card. Totally. If I'm going to give some unsolicited advice, get yourself an e-library card if you can get it. It's also fantastic.
Your device will automatically return it. Every time I've ever had a library card in my life, I've racked up late fees, and then I stopped going to the library because I'm like, I'm not giving them $50 for borrowing a book.
Yeah.
Get out of my face.
Could have just bought the book.
Could have just bought the book, exactly.
But yeah, it's fun. Oh, and then Handmaid's Tale.
What are your favorite books though? Like, give me like a few of your favorite books before we go.
One of my favorites is Catch-22. I read that first in high school and then again after high school, and I don't know what it is exactly about it, but I loved reading that book. One book that I reread every year is Born to Run, and that's just an inspirational book for
Bruce Springsteen biography?
No,
because that's really good.
Yeah, I haven't read that one actually.
I have the audiobook if I'm reading it.
Born to Run, and then it has like a little subtitle on it, and I forget what it is. But that one is where I first got introduced to the idea of ultramarathons.
Okay. Got it.
So it's kind of like, it's a quick read for me, and it's, I think it's Christopher McDougall wrote it, and I think so. Good name. And that's just like what keeps me motivated every year to sign up for a race.
That's awesome.
And then Michael Pollan's books. I would recommend any Michael Pollan book if you're interested in reading about just really good health ideas. And he doesn't give you a diet plan, but he researches a heck of a lot about food, and he is great. Like Omnivore's Dilemma, or I'm blanking on all of his other ones, but any one of Michael Pollan's book, and then any Christopher Moore book. If you want to laugh out loud, he's great. Yeah.
Right on. I think that's all I have.
Awesome.
What do you think? Is this okay?
I feel good. That was really fun. I'm excited for you to come on our podcast.
Yeah, I'm actually nervous. Like this is what I do. Yeah. I just talk and I go all over the place, and I know. Well,
for my podcast, trust me, it's not a super formal one, but I do make notes because I like to do a little research on the authors beforehand, just so and it's kind of like the fun facts with Taylor corner, and I'll give things like that. But I'm like, I didn't have to make notes today. I didn't have to prepare for anything. This is great.
So we can't really talk about what's going on with Tumeric Latte, right? Not really, not yet.
Not super in depth. It's growing. There's a lot of really fun things around the corner, I think it's gonna. I just think, there's a lot of potential there. So. Well,
grab yourself some Tumeric Latte mix, and grab your book. Go subscribe to Drunk Poet Society.
See, this is where my balance comes in. My main job is an anti-inflammatory. My side project is drinking alcohol. Life is all about balance, people.
It's all about balance. Well, Taylor, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
See, wasn't that fun? It was 2.5 solid hours of talking about everything. And I hope that you guys go and listen to the Drunk Poet Society podcast. I'm actually their latest guest on their Spooky-sode for Halloween, where we talk about the legend of Sleepy Hollow, the short story written by Washington Irving. You might have seen the movie starring Johnny Depp. That was a Tim Burton flick. Or that awesome animated short that Disney did back in like the 1940s that I still love. So go give it a listen, subscribe to them, and be sure to share the Hollywood Happy Hour podcast with your friends. If you listen to podcasts, do your friends listen to podcasts? I find like all my friends listen to podcasts, but some of my friends don't at all. My family does not listen to podcasts at all. So the only reason I think they don't listen to podcasts is because no one's telling them to listen to podcasts. They don't understand how super fun and interesting they can be. So share the podcast. Follow me on all the social medias at Shot of Bailey's. And I got a couple more episodes lined up, already recorded. I just got to stop being lazy, and I got to release them. So, and also, my friend Gregory Fisher needs to come on here, as well as the other half of Drunk Poet Society, and Greg Fisher's wife, Felice Fisher, will be my next two guests. I think. I don't know. I released a tweet about I'm going to release these episodes on these days, and I didn't because I got busy. But I'm going to try not to be so busy and spend some more time doing the podcast thing because it's super fun, right? All right. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.